The main character is lying in bed coughing hard, and she does not understand what kind of illness can cause such a continuous cough. This girl was the sickly eldest daughter of the Orlando family, Waylin Orlando. Her miserable life was initially caused by a marriage arranged by Wylin's parents. As the daughter of Viscount Sobin, her mother came from an extremely poor family, and worse, from one known for its gambling addiction. Blinded by despair over money, the parents sold their daughter. The gentleman who bought the girl said that she had to fulfill the terms of the agreement. The father assured him that she should not worry. The man claimed that she should give birth to an heir for Count Orlando. When Sabina gave birth to a girl, and the maid told the master about it, he screamed and asked if she knew how much money he had invested in her, and also wondered if she could give birth to a son for him. The maid tells the master that more importantly, her ladyship is not breathing, and thus the main character's mother left her alone in this world. The young lady realizes that from that day on, she could do nothing to please Orlando's family as she was treated like a slave in her own home. However, her tragedy only truly begins now. After coughing up red liquid and fainting a few hours ago, the protagonist woke up from a memory from her past life. She was a girl who was an avid reader of boys' love novels. On the day she reincarnated into Wyland's body, she was definitely reading another novel of this genre. The young lady realizes that she has been reborn as a character from the book she was reading, and she finds herself inside a fictional novel, including all the violence she has experienced over the past 22 years. The main character does not understand why she ended up in a story about male love. Whelan knows she's read too much of this kind of literature, but she doesn't understand if she deserves it. Tenderly Plucking a Lonely Flower is a very depressing novella about male love, and it is the story of Gellard Lieseltane, the overly obsessive male protagonist, and Nellen Chester, who he stalks. Gellard invades Nellen's personal space, becoming aggressive and obsessive at times. While Nellen desperately tries to escape, he eventually comes to terms with his fate, and this story will be filled with their lovemaking. The girl recalls that she especially liked the scenes where they did this. However, the reason why Nellen was so desperate to escape from the obsessive Gellard is that he meets the most beautiful woman in the entire empire, her half-sister Etheline, and the person responsible for the meeting of the two star-crossed lovers was none other than the main secondary character Wailanu. Ignored by everyone, Wylan is abused by her father and then falls ill with an unknown disease, and without support or medicine, she dies, and that is the end of her story. However, you may ask how Waylin helped Etheline and Nellen meet while she was a corpse. However, it was the day of her funeral. Nellen was passing by completely by chance and unexpectedly, and he saw a girl who was grieving for her sister. Edelina was crying in the alley when he passed by, and thus he fell in love with her at first sight, which is where this story begins. The girl realizes that her death was simply a necessary plot device to give impetus to the plot. Waylin died of illness in this dusty attic, no more than 10 steps long, without the slightest chance of having happy memories. For 22 years, the main character continued to do everything in her power, not suspecting that she was an expendable character in the novel. The man screams, calling the girl a bungler, and then asks how many times he must tell her that she must walk elegantly and with dignity. The gentleman asks if he didn't tell her to remember all the names, and then wonders if her brain is even capable of anything. The young lady understands that no matter how much effort she put in, she only heard insults every day. The father told his daughter that if she didn't come to her senses, it would be easier for him to disown her. Having dragged her exhausted body to the room, the main character even tried to cry silently so as not to create unnecessary noise. And in the end, Waylin was never accepted into the family, so she remained simply the eldest daughter of the Count, no more and no less. In the novel, Waylin died a year after falling ill, and the main character realizes that she only has 1 year left. The girl understands that she is sick and believes that she cannot avoid death. However, she does not want to end up so miserably in this little room. The young lady does not understand what she should do to escape from this terrible family, but she understands that she will not be able to earn a penny. Waylin thought about what they wanted if she could then. This was terrible treatment, because it was unknown how much time it would take to save up enough and become independent. The main character believes that first, she needs to somehow leave there, and understands that she has no other choice but to get engaged. After all, this is the only way for the daughter of a count's family to legally leave the house. According to imperial law, the engaged man can move into the house of the groom or the bride at the discretion of the family involved. The girl understands that, for now, she can negotiate an engagement with such conditions and believes that everything should be fine. Waylon doesn't know if anyone can meet her demands. She thinks it should be an unmarried man from a wealthy family who can approach the engagement without offering additional conditions. The girl thought that she had to first cross out completely unsuitable candidates. However, she realized that these were not the circumstances under which she wanted to meet the most sensible groom in her circle. The main character believes that he, as an illegitimate child, has no right to inherit. And this is the main character of the novel Gellert Lisseltane. Usually, members of the Lyseltine family have blue hair and eyes, but Gellert was different. After all, he had no external features that would connect him to the Lyseltine family. And the most important thing is that he is not indifferent to men. The main character understands that this means that he will not be interested in her at all because she is a woman. However, she believes that, as soon as she saves up enough money, she will be able to calmly leave, and therefore knows that he is the best option for her. Waylon muses that since Archduke Gellert's bastard was unable to receive a proper education, she can teach him everything she knows, and in return, he will pay her. The young lady reflects on the fact that who would have thought that she would one day write to that same obsessed Gellert. The main character understands that she does not want to get involved with the main male character, but she knows that the real story will not begin until she dies. Because now she just wants to live happily for the rest of her days, and what happens after her death does not concern her. The girl believes that the Gellert will have no choice but to accept her offer, since she knows his secret. The butler tells the gentleman that he has received a letter from Lady Wylan, the eldest daughter of the Orlando family. He asks in surprise how she wrote to him, and then takes the letter and reads it. Indigo asks the gentleman in surprise, "What happened?" He replies that the count's daughter asks for a meeting and offers to send her a letter of refusal. But a few minutes later, he changes his mind and offers to say that she can come, and he thinks that tomorrow morning will do. The girl wrote that she would like to discuss something with him, and therefore asks for a meeting as soon as possible, and therefore is impatiently waiting for his answer. And at the end of the letter, she wrote that she knows about his weaknesses. The young gentleman smiled and wondered what kind of weaknesses she was talking about. Of the three brothers, Lyseltane Gellard stood out, and his older brothers always envied his intelligence and appearance. The aristocrats said that he was an illegitimate child born in the imperial palace and did not understand whether it was not too much honor for someone who was unfamiliar with noble etiquette. The man says he can't believe another invitation came today because he burned them all last night. Then he claims they only like his looks because Gellert says he goes to dinner parties for business, but he's sure there's something else behind it. The man asks if he really thinks he can become an aristocrat and thinks that this bastard should be smarter and sit in his closet and then tears up all the invitation letters. At this time, a young gentleman was watching them, and he could not believe that they burned all the invitations intended for him. Born out of wedlock to Archduke Lyseltane, Gellert was met with great contempt by his older brothers, which forced him to use any means available to survive, eventually leading to a desperate desire for attention. Gellert had an exceptional talent for attracting people with his expressive face and eloquence, so he quickly established connections with business partners at the various aristocratic banquets he attended. It was for this reason that any invitations were of great importance to him. The guy saw one lost invitation under the chair, and after reading it, he realized that it was from the Duke. Duke Adelvia, being the most influential man in the empire, regularly held banquets. He was often possessive of his wife. The Duke was always wary of men interested in her, so his parties were restricted to married or engaged noblemen. The young gentleman does not understand how he can find a bride in such a short period of time, and he thought that if he could only attend this event, he would be able to significantly increase his influence. After much deliberation, he decided to go to the party with the woman who pretended to be his fiancée. The guy thought about how they were asked how long they had known each other, and the answer was different from his side and from his girlfriend's side. The aristocrats will decide that their story is not confirmed. And when the Gellert came to the count, the servants did not let him in, explaining that his lordship ordered not to let him in, The boy realized that rumors of his fake engagement must have reached the Count soon after the Gallard's business was on the verge of bankruptcy as his partners lost confidence in him. The young gentleman went and got drunk out of grief. When the guy saw him, he said that he looked like he was about to catch a squirrel. The young man says that he has been watching the gentleman for quite some time now, because his shop is across the street. He says that it may seem strange, but he would like to treat him. The guy claims that pears are good for hangovers and simply offers to take them. That day, Gellard met Nellen, and this meeting changed his life forever. Gellard has a rather painful past in the novel, but the main character has no choice but to take advantage of his weakness. 1 week later, at the Lyseltine family estate, the young lady thought that she had been counting the days waiting for an answer, and her patience was rewarded, and it was all thanks to the reception of Duke Adelvia. The main character believes that this guy has no reason to reject her offer. However, she is not going to back down and is still terribly nervous before this meeting and assures herself that everything should go well. Weiling started coughing and thought that she should have taken a large dose of cough medicine earlier, and the butler informs the lady that the master is ready to see her. When the girl saw the guy, she thought that she should wake up, because now is not the time to admire his damn attractive face. She thinks that she should be calm and collected, just like Waylon was in the novel. The lady says she is pleased to meet him, and then gives her name. He says he must say he is amazed that she asked to meet him. The main character apologizes if she surprised him, and at that time she thought that he did not suspect anything. And then she says that there was something that she would like to discuss with him personally. The gentleman suggests getting down to business, and at this time does not understand what this girl has in mind. The main character says that she would like to become his bride. The guy was surprised to hear this, and she explains that she wants to agree on a conditional engagement between her and him. Gellard claims that they hadn't even met until today. At this time, the lady thought that looking at his expression, she didn't know that he could be so cute. The gentleman asks if she means to say that he must now accept her proposals because of what was written in the letter. The lady claims that she knows that he is still hiding in the closet, and the only person who can perfectly play the role of his bride is her. The guy asks in surprise where she heard such a ridiculous rumor. At this time, the main character thought that, since she assumed that Gellard is an extremely proud person who has never admitted to himself or anyone else that he is gay, Gellard kept Nellen under strict conditions, and having achieved what he wanted, did everything to ensure that no one found out about his secret passions. The main character looked at him pouring tea and does not understand how these could be the hands of a possessed man because they are so soft and beautiful. However, she knows that these very hands did those very things to Nellen. The handsome guy asks the lady what she means by him hiding in the closet. Whelan replies that since he has no idea what she's talking about, he thinks it must be just a rumor. But either way, it doesn't matter, since he still needs someone to marry. The girl says that the only possible way to attend the reception of Duke Adelvia as an unmarried man is to bring a bride with you. The lady says that if she is not mistaken, he has been looking for a long time for an opportunity to get to at least one of his appointments. Hearing this, the guy does not understand how she knows the contents of the secret letter that he entrusted to Indigo. After all, he thinks that Indigo is his personal servant and he would not betray him, and he thinks that she must have her own source. The main character says that, as he already knows, she is the daughter of Count Orlando, and therefore could not only provide him with access to the reception of Duke Adelvius, but also to the imperial ball, and during the term of their agreement, she will pretend to be his bride. Waylene says that she will teach him everything he needs to know about the ethics and culture of aristocrats, but in exchange asks him to provide her with an appropriate amount of money and to treat her with respect. The girl says that when their agreement comes to an end, they can simply go their separate ways. The gentleman asks what exactly she intends to get from this deal, since he believes that the terms are not entirely in her favor. Hearing this, the lady thought that he was reacting the same way she thought and believed that if she told the truth, he would decide that she was crazy, and so she prepared a suitable answer in advance. Waylon explains that right now, what she needs is money and a safe place to live. He asks, surprised, if she means anywhere, as long as it's outside of Orlando's estate. The girl explains that, to tell the truth, she is very sick, and it is a serious illness, but she is still able to do everyday things. And then he says that if it turns out that someone in Orlando's family is terminally ill, It will entail a lot of problems, especially if this person is none other than the Count's daughter. Hearing this, the gentleman wondered if the young lady was sick, and the girl explained that she did not want to become a burden to her father or family, and so she needed a place where she could stay, since that was what brought her to him. The main character thought that this should be enough for him to believe her. At this time, the guy thought that this girl's sense of duty to her family was amazing. The young gentleman thinks that her illness is not so important now, if it will allow him to get an appointment with the Duke. At this time, the young lady thought that Gellard was ready to support the idea. He thought that he would be an idiot if he rejected such an offer, and if he could find her source of information, then in any case, his benefit prevails. The young gentleman says that he agrees, and the girl thinks that he finally said it. He asks what date would be best for organizing a reception in honor of their engagement. Waylon replies that, to be honest, she would like to tomorrow, but thinks that it might seem suspicious, and then asks how about next week. He agrees with her and suggests meeting again in the week. At this time, the main character understands that everything is going according to plan, and then says that she will send him a message with the details and will look forward to their joint work. The girl suggests simply adhering to the terms of their contract, since he is using her to increase his influence in business, and she is using him to get money to become independent. The young lady thinks that as long as they respect each other's boundaries, there shouldn't be any problems, and then suggests that he not worry, because she will take his secret to the grave. A week later, on the day of Gellard's engagement, she had a simple private ceremony. The main character thinks that everything is going well so far, and at least she succeeded in escaping from home. Waylon says that there is nothing surprising there, because her father did not intend to get involved in her engagement, and simply told her to do as she wanted. After meeting the guy, she went straight to her father. He asks if she hopes to gain any benefit from a relationship with the third son of Archduke Lisseltane. Wayleen's father, Orn Orlando, says he didn't expect her to get involved with such a high-profile family like this. However, he tells her to do whatever she wants, because he'll see how long they'll tolerate her. The main character understands that if she enters the Lisselton family, then the Count will no longer have power over his daughter. According to the law of the Empire, if there is no legitimate heir, then an illegitimate child can assume these rights, and also the legitimate mistress could become a countess. The young lady believes that if Etheline's family favorite could have been taught etiquette from the start, there would have been no need to keep her in the estate for so long. However, she believes that all this is no longer important, since she is already sick of them too. The girl thought that she really should be more vigilant from now on. After all, she refused to live the rest of her life as an expendable extra, and instead, she would spend her remaining days without regret. Waylon thought that she would get the most out of him first. The priest says that they are now officially engaged. The main character understands that now her effective engagement for mutual benefit begins. The young lady thinks that Gellard is a piece of shit, but does not understand why he decided to go home alone and leave her alone with her father. Kellen Lyseltane Duke, who owns the hero Low Lane, the source of the most valuable imperial pink crystals and the place where they are mined, and a vineyard on imperial soil where the most expensive and delicious wine is made. The man says there is something he would like to clear up, and then says it would be better if she accepts that the engagement will not last long, and moreover, he has no reason to try to get along with her. Hearing this, the lady thought that it must have been extremely difficult for him to persuade his father to approve of this engagement. The man says that she can use the main building of Annex as long as she lives as a lodger, and if she leaves the house without permission, then she should prepare for house arrest for violation. Hearing this, the girl thought that this was just the tip of the iceberg, and then said that she understood. The man asked why Orlando of all people. Waylon thought that he was not very well disposed towards her family, but there was no hint of blood feud between their families. However, she thinks that, in any case, it is still to her advantage. The main character understands that everything will be fine, because she left her home and her family, and when the handsome man pays her, she will fulfill her desire, because she understands that she has a little less than a year left. The lady suggests going over the points of the contract and signing the papers, and the guy agrees with her, and at that time, I thought that something extremely important that she wanted to urgently discuss after the ceremony is none other than their contract. The young master believes that Indigo was able to dig up Count Orlando's past without any difficulty, but everything changed after Wylan was born, and Orlando's family became secretive, and his personal assistant is still working to find out more about what happened in their family. Willian is informed that, as stated above, their contract will last for 2 years. She understands that the events of the novel will begin within this year or next year, and therefore she cannot waste time. Gellard says that the request is for respect and protection from Lieseltain's third son after the engagement, and asks what she means. The main character explains that it protects against various external factors, and then gives an example that if she encounters the hostility of her loved one, and thought that the truth is that this part is more intended to protect against any aggression from Orlando. The guy says he understands, and then asks, "What about her illness?" The girl says she will take care of it, and tells him not to worry. The young gentleman assures her that he promises to provide her with protection and treat her with respect. She thanks him and asks about payment for their lessons, and then says that she thinks a fee of 400 gold pieces is acceptable. Willan explains that it includes everything a noble class needs, as well as a guarantee that it will remain a secret. And since she will need to prepare everything herself, the price for some lessons may be higher. At this time, the main character became interested in how much this man is ready to pay. He says that it is easier for him to pay 700 gold for one lesson, regardless of the subject. Hearing this, the girl thought that he had an aura of dominance, and then he says that this will cover the cost of the lesson. He says that if she has anything to add, then let her know about it. The young lady claims that this is all she needs, because she believes that the engagement should be beneficial to both of them, and thought that she would squeeze every advantage out of this agreement. The young gentleman offers to talk about his conditions. He says that she can live there with him in Anne's, but she will need special permission to enter the main house. Hearing this, the main character thought that the Archduke had told her the same thing earlier. Gellard says that she is free to choose her servants, but this does not apply to the main house. The girl thought that, simply put, she can only play the mistress in Annex. The handsome man says that there is one more important condition at the end, and that is that they should not interfere in each other's personal lives. Hearing this, the young lady thought that it was only to her advantage, and she was grateful to him. The guy explains that it refers to someone like a lover. Hearing this, the girl was surprised, and remembered that she was sure that in the novel, Nellen was his first, and she does not understand whether it means that he was interested in someone else. The lady tells the gentleman that she wanted to say something, and at that time, she thought that when she entered the room, she would be able to catch them naked when they did this. Wayland understands that if she becomes his wife, then a lot of problems will come with it, because people around will watch their every step, and Gellard will continue to hide his sexual relations, and she does not understand what he is thinking about. The girl asks if he is talking about the fact that, at the moment, he already has a lover, and at that moment she thought that she was wondering who it could be, because it makes her heart flutter. Hearing this, the guy objects, and says that he understands that this is a little different from her idea of an ideal contractual agreement, but they have a deeply business relationship, and therefore he sees no reason to expect any feelings from each other. The gentleman says that he doesn't have a lover now, but he understands that no one knows what will happen tomorrow. And he says this so that she understands that he has a clear idea of their agreements, because he believes that then they will not have misunderstandings. Wayland thought that if this was his argument, then she saw no point in refusing, and then she agreed, and said that she accepted his conditions. The main character thought that as long as she doesn't come under fire, then no matter what happens, she doesn't care at all. A week later, the man tells the lady that he is an indigo. She says that she assumes that Gellard's schedule of classes is already prepared. He says that it is, however, it is only for a week, not a month, as she asked. The lady asks if she can ask why, and at that moment, she thinks that it is easier to calculate how much she earns on a monthly basis. The servant says that they have to make many adjustments to the master's schedule, and that is why he asks for forgiveness. She asks in surprise if the schedule changes that often. The man says he hates to agree with this, but it is true. He believes that time is money, especially when it comes to business. The main character thought that she was sure that this was somehow connected with the fact that he was an illegitimate child. However, she understands that she cannot allow this because she also has plans. Wayland states that she understands, and then asks if there is any way to set the exact time of their classes. Indigo replies that in the end it all depends on the gentleman, but he will try his best. The girl suggests recording the tea lesson for 9 in the morning, and then says that she needs to go to the library to prepare. Walking along the corridor, the main character remembered the conversations of the maids about how she was locked in the attic because she was extremely jealous of Lady Etheline, and she wondered if it would be the same in this place. The girl thinks that she will no longer look like a fool and then takes the bell. The maid asks the lady if she called her. At this time, the main character thought that her personal maid Maureen even greets her differently than at home. The lady says that she wants to visit the library and asks Maureen if she could take her there. A few minutes later, the main character says who could have known that the day would come when she would be able to calmly drink tea in the library. While in this room, the young lady thought that there were so many books, and she understood that there might not be novels about male relationships, and she would try to look for them a little later. Waylane believes that she needs to create a lesson plan first, as she knows that standard tea drinking manners will not be enough to satisfy the people Gellard deals with. The girl understands that these people come with the determination to find even the slightest flaw that they can notice. But she knows that if she follows the rules of etiquette, this will give a reason to call him an important figure. The main character thought that he was her very first student, and therefore she could not allow him to become an ignoramus. After spending a lot of time in the library, the young lady thought that this should be enough. Because now that Waylon thinks about it, if the handsome guy makes a deal using the manner she taught him, she will tell him to hang her in the position of official etiquette instructor as a reward. The main character understands that, then she will be able to receive a stable income and thinks it is great. But she understands that this will only happen if her health condition allows it. The girl remembered that if she thought about it, she hadn't coughed all day, and she had terrible pain in her chest every time she had to cough, and therefore she thought that she must be getting better. At this time, the young gentleman thought that he had forgotten the letter in the library, and at this very moment, entering the room, he saw the girl and thought that she was more diligent than he thought. Gellard believes that his first impression is that she is a hothouse girl who does not know difficulties and is like a well-groomed greenhouse plant. The guy remembers that Indigo said that she planned the lessons at a certain time and thinks that she is quite serious about the fake engagement. But suddenly, the main character started coughing non-stop, and at that moment, the young gentleman opened the door and ran up to her. When the lady saw him, she told him not to come near her, and the guy offers her to take his handkerchief and then says that there is too much red liquid. The maid informs the mistress that she has brought the butler, as she requested. Gellard tells her to bring warm water and towels and some broth. At this time, he remembered that the girl said that she was able to cope with the routine, but looking at her condition, he understands that the lady lied so much for the sake of engagement with him. The young gentleman believes that she is indeed a burden to her family, but suggests that there were reasons why she did not tell about it. At this time, the main character does not understand why right now, because she is so upset that she cannot even cry. She remembers that she said that she could cope with routine matters, but at this time, she cannot even continue to keep her eyes open. Suddenly, Wileen loses consciousness, and at this time, the guy quickly picks her up. After some time, the girl opened her eyes and realized that she had fainted, and the handsome man asked in surprise if she was okay. Hearing this, the main character thought that he wanted her to faint again. He asks what's wrong, and also inquires if she has any heart problems. The young lady claims she is fine, and then asks if he can let go of her hand. Gellard blushed and apologized when he heard this, but the lady understood that she said she could handle it herself, but fainted again. Waylon thought about what if he used this as an excuse to break off the engagement. The butler reports that the doctor said she needs to rest, and thinks it's best to leave the lady in silence. The guy asks the bride if she'll be okay. She claims that everything will be fine because Maureen is nearby. After 2 days of rest in bed, the day of the first lesson arrived. The main character thought that the medicine from her house did not work at all, but the local ones work perfectly. But she knows that the doctor still could not give her a diagnosis, but at least she stopped coughing up red liquid. The young lady realizes that now is not the time to feel sorry for herself, since today is their very first lesson. The butler invites the lady to enter, as they were waiting for her, and the young gentleman greeted her. Seeing the guy in glasses, Waylon thought that he looked like her heartthrob classmate, but she realized that among other things, he was avoiding talking about her illness. The bride understands that he did not want to recheck the contract or break off the engagement. And since Indigo and Marin did not say anything, she felt relieved. Gellard asks if she wants him to pretend like nothing happened when they even brought in a doctor. Indigo replies that she thinks it's best not to show concern or pity right now. The Duke says that she is suffering, and he himself saw how sick she is. The butler says that this is his final opinion, because the doctor said that her illness is unknown and incurable. The young gentleman cries out and asks if he is asking him to ignore it, and then asks what kind of person would do that. Indigo asks if he shows regret, will anything change, because he thinks that she doesn't want self-pity, because she didn't just say that she was able to take care of herself. The butler claims that she wanted to be by his side so much that she lied to him about her health, and therefore thinks it might be better to respect her wishes. Only Gallardo and Waylon knew that the engagement was fictitious, and therefore he could not tell the Indigo the truth. When the main character entered the office, she greeted the gentleman and said that she would be his personal teacher from this day on. The girl does not understand why when she said this, the gentleman laughed. Gellard says that it is an honor for him, and he will look forward to her lessons. The bride asks if they can start, and at this time does not understand why he is so brilliant, because she is trying to be sincere, and he is really laughing at her. The teacher says it's just a copy and thinks there shouldn't be any problems reading it. She doesn't understand why she feels like he's checking her homework, even though she's the teacher. At this point, the guy thought that the document was so well researched that it could be presented as a teaching aid. And so he was surprised that the lady had selected and organized information from 26 books. Gellard believed that Waylon was simply an arrogant daughter of an aristocrat, and also thought that he already had a school education and would simply conduct lessons just for the money. Contrary to his expectations, Waylon destroyed the usual idea of step-by-step lessons, and she even wrote a separate conclusion, although she was very ill, and therefore the young master understands that she is serious. At this time, the main character reflects on the fact that usually Indigo pours tea in order to ensure that Gellard is not humiliated for being an illegitimate child. The young lady recalls that when she read about it, she thought it was heartbreaking, but when she saw it in real life, it seemed like something bigger, but she still understood that she needed to take care of herself. The young gentleman says that he is surprised because he thinks that this is the best book he has ever seen, since he thinks that such books can only be found in the academy. Hearing this, the girl remembered that in the past she received a lot of praise from teachers, but not from her father, because she was only scolded for not being perfect. Waylon is happy because she has already escaped from this hell, and then she says that she is grateful that her efforts have paid off. Hearing this, the young gentleman was surprised, because she thanked him, and he understands that it is much more important that she is happy to help. And the lady thought that this did not seem like a simply polite answer. Gellard thought that, smiling, she didn't look mortally ill. When the main character of this novel was little, he did not know what an illegitimate child was, and his desire was to go to the academy with his brothers. This made others look down on him because the boy didn't know his place. The only one who showed him kindness was the Indigo, because he was with the boy at every stage of his growing up, and therefore knows everything about the young master. At this time, the butler thought that he felt somehow strange, because he could not recognize the young master sitting in front of him. Waylon thought that when he smiles, he looks like an angel, and I think it is not surprising that when I am with him, I'm on cloud 9. The girl understands that she needs to pull herself together, but she can't hide her smile, because he is the most inadequate guy who is going to kidnap Nellen and do all sorts of dirty things to him. The main character claims that in the end, his lessons on etiquette come down to what they are. She says that if his movements are constrained and unnatural, then people will think that he is a person who does not know the basics, and it does not matter how long he studied before that. Gellard says that makes sense, and thinks that she is eloquent, and he wouldn't be surprised if she has been practicing. The guy looked at the girl carefully, and he wondered where she got such cute freckles, and they are small, but there are so many of them, and even more beautiful is her chestnut hair. He thinks that her health is her Achilles heel. The young gentleman remembers that after fainting, his bride occupies all his thoughts, and he understands that now, with her, and this can happen again. And therefore he thinks that the lady does not look worried about this. After all, it is because she is awaiting imminent death. Of all the weapons Gellard had, his appearance was the most effective. A single smile could make you faint. Even the Dowager Duchess, who valued the noble customs of her ancestors and lineages, was fascinated by Gellard and sent him gifts. At this time, the young gentleman thought that his bride was fine and asked if they could do a test. The lady says that first he must point out all the mistakes she has made since she entered the room. Hearing this, the young gentleman was surprised and wondered if there had been any mistakes, since it seemed to him that she was doing everything perfectly. Wylan says he can look at the conclusion, because that's what he's for. The guy reads that when he receives a guest indoors, the sun shouldn't shine on half of his face. The teacher says that he said it correctly, because usually the guest's seat is not in front of the window. Gellard didn't have many guests, so he didn't pay attention to such trifles. She explains that his eye color shouldn't change, because it shows that he can be trusted. The young lady says that if the sun only shines on half of his face, one eye will be brighter than the other, and the difference in pupil size will make him look unbalanced. The guy wonders what to do if he is outside. She explains that then it should be light everywhere, and if they drink tea outside in the shade, after all, the leaves will create this shadow, and the wind could make a mess. The main character asks if he can find another mistake. He claims that the ladies haven't had a sip of tea. Wylan praises him and tells him that he said the right thing, and then explains that if he doesn't drink the tea that was prepared for him, it might seem like he's refusing the host's favor. The young gentleman asks in surprise, what if she suspects that the tea is poisoned? Hearing this, the main character thought that from his stories, it is clear why he is worried about this. The teacher says that she can say that she was so absorbed in the conversation that she only enjoyed the aroma of the tea, because she thinks that no one will check whether she really inhaled it or not. The guy asks if he will have to touch him with his lips like that. She explains that if the situation is so bad, there is nothing else to do. The young gentleman said that he understood, and the lady thought that her hard work was worth it, because she thought that this pretty face was doing everything right. Gellard thanks the lady for teaching him the rules of tea drinking. She claims it is because he is a brilliant student and therefore suggests that they leave it at that. The main character suggests that they learn party manners in the next lesson and then asks him what he thinks about it. The handsome man replies that this is great, since he has already made a request to attend Duke Adelvia's party. After all, he believes that he will most likely receive an invitation in a few days. Wylan says that the most important thing to show at an important event is stamina. He also needs to be calm and graceful throughout the event, because everyone will be judging how long he can maintain his flawless appearance while standing. Hearing this, the guy thought that he was in good shape and thought that this would not be a problem. He understood that things were not going well for him now, because it would not be easy to mix with the aristocrats. The girl says that most skills are instilled in children and will move in order in any case. She explains that this is why she asked to conduct classes in 2 specific time periods. The lady asks if this time before breakfast and at 4 o'clock in the evening would be convenient for him. He asks, surprised, why these 2 segments. The teacher replies that before breakfast he will feel weak, and because of an empty stomach, and 4 o'clock in the evening is the time when they are most tired. And therefore, he believes that if they practice when his body's tired, they will make significant progress. The young gentleman explains that his schedule may change, but for now he agrees, because he will do everything to make sure that his lessons are a priority. Gellard wonders if she can teach without fainting and suggests meeting at the next lesson. On the day of the next lesson, the main character thought that she had spent all her time preparing materials for the lesson, but thought that she looked too shabby. The girl is worried because she doesn't know what this activity will be like, and she doesn't understand why she's nervous, because she thinks he's a quick learner and doesn't seem to be bored, which is why he was able to kidnap Nellen so skillfully. Wylan says that in any case, she hopes that this lesson will be fun. At this time, the young master says that he is already starting to get tired, and then asks the butler if he thinks that the jewelry is unnecessary, since he feels as if he is wearing armor. Indigo asks him to be patient, because he thinks that the gentleman will quickly get used to it. And at that time, he thought that he would never have seen this look if it were not for Lady Wylan. After a while, the teacher entered the room, and the butler greeted her, and then said that they were waiting for her. He looked at the lady in surprise and said that she looked incredible, and thought that he hadn't even imagined that purple suited her so well. Gellard walked up to the lady and then kissed her hand. He said that the stars in the sky must be jealous of her beauty, and asked how else her hands could shine so much. At this time, the girl thought that it was not for nothing that he was an obsessed protagonist, because he knew exactly what to say to start controlling a person. The teacher says it was amazing, and he did brilliantly, because she realizes she didn't even teach him this. Hearing this, the guy thought that he had looked at his greetings earlier, but had not even tried to practice them now, because he understood that they came to mind when he looked at hers. Then the young gentleman began the dance lesson. The girl says that he is looking at his feet again and should focus on her. Gellard says the hem of her dress gets in the way. She claims this is unacceptable for men and her partner, and then says he also stepped on her dress. At this time, the young master thought that this was driving him crazy and thought that it would be better if he waved his sword. The teacher says they need a short break. He asks his fiancée how he can do that, and then says he just can't keep up. The tired gentleman wondered if she was really the girl who was suffering from an incurable disease and coughing up red liquid. Wayland says that he has enough skills but poor stamina, and then says that if he tries to hold on to stamina alone, he will burn out. The lady claims that it will be difficult to endure the night if he is tense and anxious, regardless of his physical condition, and moreover, he is just beginning to learn the basics. The main character says that there are millions of things to keep in mind, and then says that one day beautiful posture becomes routine, and he reflexively dances with her, and his body will naturally follow the music. The teacher suggests that he use today as an example. She explains that he has memorized all the steps and has already been able to dance with her, and then asks what student would achieve such results on the first day, and says that he is incredible. Hearing this, the guy thought that she had noticed his mistakes during the lesson, but preferred to make him feel better. Gellard knows she's had a lot of health problems, and he wonders why she's so nice to him. He thinks he has no idea what's going on in her head. Wayland asks if they will continue practicing. He agrees and says that the goal will have to learn the entire dance. When the young people danced, the butler watched them and thought it was a magnificent sight. The guy thought that his bride looked good, even in such less than ideal moments. At this time, the main character saw his gaze and does not understand why he makes such a face that one might think that he fell in love with her. The guy looking at the girl thinks that she doesn't look sick even despite her disheveled state. Wayland tells the master that he learns quite quickly, and she can't believe that he learned the entire dance in just 4 hours. Gellard claims that it's all thanks to her, because she's a great teacher, and he just copied her. At this time, the main character thought that she had the feeling that she was allergic to compliments, because she could not look him in the eyes. The teacher asks Indigo if he could get her a glass of water, and then looks at her watch and wonders if Gellard is going to study anymore. The young gentleman thanks the lady for the work she has done. She asks if he had any plans after class, and then tells him that she has taken up too much of his time. Gellard assures her that everything is fine, because the lesson was actually useful and he had a good time. Then he tells her not to worry about it. At this time, the main character thought that he had decided to stop there, and then said that they would finish for today. The young gentleman says that this sounds great, and then says that they will see each other in the next lessons. Hearing this, the girl thought that it was strange, because she did not understand why she felt prolapse. The butler looked at the tired gentleman and asked if he was okay. At that moment, the guy thought that he almost asked her to dance the dance again, and she didn't say anything, despite the fact that it seemed she wanted to repeat it too. The handsome man thinks that he really had a wonderful time, and her green eyes sparkled like stars, and he is already looking forward to the next lesson. Gellard thought about how he had been putting off work lately because of his studies, and now he had to return to it because he felt like it was literally stalking him. The finest wine in the Oswaldian Empire, made from the finest grapes, Archduke Lisselton perfected the method of bringing out the aroma of the fine grapes, which by a fortunate coincidence were called the nectar of the gods. Taking advantage of this, the Archduke designated this luxurious wine as the main product of the Lisselton estate. This meant that the management of the greatest vineyards would become the sole object of study for the family's successor. But being an illegitimate child, Gellard had no rights to inheritance and therefore could not receive proper training. The father told his son that he was giving his permission for him to manage part of his vineyard. Hearing this, Gellard was surprised and asked if his father was serious. Kellen gave him a part of the vineyard for care. Having learned of his merits, which were known throughout the empire, his father entered the boy into the family register. The Duke wanted to use this as an opportunity to send the boy to the next world. The protagonist of this novel believes that, fortunately, the harvest is stable, and if everything continues to go smoothly, he will be able to proudly show his father the accounting book for this month. The boy realizes that his older brother keeps the general ledger for almost the entire vineyard, but fortunately, his father takes care of his share. Gellard knows that if it were his brother, he would use any means necessary to change the yield figures of his unit, all to make him look bad in front of his father. Killian had an official family and 2 sons. However, he loved the Gellard's mother very much, and they were once called the couple of the century throughout the empire. However, the boy's mother died after an incident with Count Orlando's mistress, Senorita. And when the young gentleman said that he wanted to get engaged to Lady Wylin, the daughter of Count Orlando, the father cried out and asked why, and all those whom he had chosen were the Orlando family. Although Kellen was against this marriage, he eventually gave in after his son's persistent reproaches. When Indigo investigated the girl's past, it turned out that she was completely unrelated to the Senorita's past, and the Senorita seemed to have worked hard to hide this from Wylin. The guy understands that if it turned out that someone in Orlando's family was sick, it would entail a lot of problems, and he remembers that even then, her intentions seemed honest and sincere. Gellard reflects that in all the time he has observed her, she has never seemed to him to be such a liar, and he thinks that on the contrary, she is kind and cheerful. The young gentleman thought that he had not seen his father since the wedding ceremony. The main estate and the annex were separated from each other, requiring anyone wishing to travel from one residence to the other to obtain personal permission from Kellen. Gellard thinks that if tomorrow one item from his schedule is cancelled, he will definitely send a request to visit the main estate. The Duke says that he thought his son was so busy with his bride that he had forgotten about him, but at last he remembered his old father. The butler objects and tells the lord that this is not the case at all, and then explains that he is simply absorbed in his studies, which he showed through the crystal ball. The gentleman asks if he said why he wanted to see him. The servant explains that he didn't mention anything except dinner. Hearing this, the Duke thought that his son did not need a reason to meet his father, but he believed that Tiorian and Lobel would lose their temper. The butler asks if it is not time for the monthly report, and suggests that he most likely wants advice on this matter. The gentleman says that he doubts it because the son has never asked for advice. Unlike his 2 older brothers who couldn't do anything on their own, Gellard didn't have to hide under his father's protection, but Kellen still wanted to help his son in any endeavor. However, the fact that the young master did not inherit the blue eyes that serve as the symbol of the Lieselton family remains. This is the reason why all the workers in Annex are related to shades of blue. The Count thinks that this boy does not understand how much he worries about him, and then tells the butler to tell him that his request has been granted. The next day, Gellard saw Lady Vaylin. She was in the library again. He thought that she should be resting and did not understand what she was doing there. Indigo explains that, according to Marin, she spends the entire day at her desk, even when she doesn't have a specific schedule for the day. The gentleman asks in surprise whether she spends the whole day there because he understands that she is preparing for their lessons. The butler tells the gentleman that it is extremely impolite to look into the lady's bedroom like that. He replies that everything will be fine, and then waves his hand at her. And the servant understands that there is no need to even talk about how strong this love is. And the Indigo's misunderstanding of the whole situation became deeper and deeper. Waylon thought that she didn't want to wave back because she understood that she was teaching him etiquette, which didn't mean she could violate it herself. However, she thought that it was simply impossible to refuse his eyes. The girl understands that he was going to the main estate, and she is surprised because he is not there yet. And as far as she remembers, in the novel, Gellard stayed only in Annex. The young lady understands that she will meet him after class anyway, and that is why she will ask him then. At this time, the young master thought that he wanted to talk to his father alone, but these 2 came at the last minute. He thinks that they do not understand mercenaries at all. The father asks him if he likes the food. The boy replies that it is very tasty and the chef is very skilled, and that is why the food seems tastier. The gentleman agrees with him and says that this is the main estate of Lieseltane, and believes that it is not even worth comparing with a small house like Annex. Brother says he heard that he is being taught by Count Orlando's daughter, and therefore thinks that it is not a simple waste of time. Lobel says that he agrees with him because his boorish table manners have improved a little. Gellard says he's glad to hear it, as he thinks the rumors about the Orlando family's high standards must be true, and considering he hasn't taken table manners lessons yet, he already says he's improved. Teorian asks, screaming what the bastard said. However, the guy got up from the table and tells his father that he is asking for forgiveness. Hearing this, the older brother was surprised and thought that it was good that they joined them for dinner, because no one knows what he could have done if his father was completely at his disposal, and he thinks that this is how he plans to rise with the help of the Orlando family. Teorian thought that it was time for him to realize that he was just a bastard whose fate was to live in the sewers of life. Lobel thought that this was strange, because he usually ignores such comments and does not understand why he is so aggressive today. He also thinks that it could be because of the mention of his fiancée, and therefore thinks that he should find out if this is true. Lobel reports that he heard that Lady Valen's beauty is breathtaking. Theorian asks in surprise what he is talking about. The gentleman explains that her skin is apparently white like a corpse, and her lips are as red as the blood of dead animals, and then asks if that is why he did not bring her with him to dinner. And at that time, the brother thought about whether he would pay attention to this, because he thought that he wanted to use her family status, but it seems that he really likes her. Gellard asks what he was thinking, and at that moment thought that he showed too much emotion when it came to his fiancée. The butler offers Mr. Gellard a cup of tea and calms down. And at this time, the young master thought about how Wylan got engaged to him, expecting to be treated with respect, and therefore he does not want to burden her with the shame of his origin. The young gentleman asks if he should warn her about his brothers. The butler says that would be good, but he worries that the stress of it could further undermine her health. And the guy agrees with him, because he thinks that she might get fixated on his brothers and forget about her condition. He thinks that these two will do everything to harm him, and she will be in danger. The handsome man thinks that if they find out about her illness, it will be a real disaster, and therefore he must figure out how to hide her illness. The previous Gillard would not have been bothered by the rumors surrounding Wylan. He focused solely on his own problems. But for some reason, the new Gellard could not turn away from her, although he understood that there was no serious reason for concern. The guy says that he needs to get some fresh air, and he will go out and wave his sword a little. At this time, the main character asks Marina if she feels that today is colder than usual, and at this time, she thought about what she heard about the cold winds that come to this place, regardless of the time. The girl understands that even in the height of summer, it is not hot there, thanks to the Archduke's magic stones that cool the air. And she understands that rich people live in comfort, because they were able to acquire these stones. The maid tells Milady that she will bring her another hot water bottle to the room, and then asks if she is sure that she does not need to take medicine. The lady assures that everything is fine, because she has been coughing less lately. And she thought that today they wanted to talk about table manners. And since the goal of the lesson is to learn how to eat without getting your clothes dirty, maybe he should wear a white suit. Wylan tells Marina that she will knock on the master's door, and at that time, she thought that she wants to be the first to see his dazzling suit. And after a few minutes, the main character doesn't understand why there is no answer, and asks if he can go out for a minute. The maid says that the butler is not there, and there has been no change in his schedule. The mistress thinks that she is right, because he did not mention any other plans when she encountered him earlier. Marina asks if she can wait for him, because she assumes that something urgent might have happened. Waiting at the door, the main character starts coughing. The maid says that her skin is very cold, and asks why she doesn't go to her room and wait for him there. At this time, the girl thought that she understood that something urgent had happened, but she wondered why he had no time to warn her before leaving, and he did not even deign to convey the message. Wylan doesn't understand what happened to that possessed Gellard, who was never late. The girl thinks that he is testing her patience, and then she turns to Marina and asks her to bring a chair and a heating pad. When the maid brought her a chair, the main character thought that all she had to do was wait, and she became interested in who would win, she or he. The lady thinks that if her stupid body could last longer, she would have won, But she did not wait for the master because she had to leave. The next day, the maid informs Milady that a dungeon was found under the vineyard on the property of Mr. Gellard, and that is why he had to leave so suddenly. Tenderly Plucking a Lonely Flower was an unusual male love novella, barely the tricks that Gellard used to capture Nellin. However, the main character believes that he was too persistent in expressing his love, because the novel was the embodiment of cruelty and depression. The young lady recalls how he fell in love with Nellin. After all, they first met when the young master was depressed because of the collapse of all his affairs at the Enterprise, and the collapse was connected with the dungeon. At this time, the maid looked at the mistress and thought that she had never seen her so downcast, because she became sad and upset because the master canceled their plans yesterday. When she started coughing, and Marina asks if she is okay, and also wonders if she should stay with her. But the mistress assures that she is okay, and suggests the maid to go and do what she needs. Hearing this, Marina thought that she had spent all her time waiting for Mr. Gellard yesterday, and therefore she believes that the lady has deep feelings for him, and she is sure of it. The maid tells the lady that she will wait for her there then, and then wishes her luck. Hearing this, the main character does not understand why she wished her luck. Marin's misunderstanding of the whole situation became deeper and deeper, and Gellard's misfortunes began with the discovery of the dungeon in the vineyard. After all, during his excavations, a lot of the harvest was lost, and what's worse, Tiorian scattered poison throughout the vineyard. Besides this, dungeon had no commercial value. Therefore, without even taking a closer look, Gellard sold it at a bargain price. Duke Adelvian, who was keen on collecting dungeons at the time, bought it from a Gellard and discovered a huge number of magic stones inside, and thus he became the only person in the Empire who possessed the technology of refining magic stones. Gellard tried to make a new deal, but the Duke insisted that all business matters should be resolved at his parties. To make matters worse, there were rumors that Gellard had lost Calane's trust after all of his vineyards had died, but the main character realizes that Theorian was actually to blame for everything. The young gentleman fell into a deep depression until he eventually met him, and that is when the events of the novel really begin. The main character thought that then everything she had put up with until now would go down the drain, but she believed that she had to survive it no matter what. The girl thinks about whether she can try to change some of the events that occurred at the beginning of the novel. The lady thought that maybe she could come up with something with the dungeon, because she understood that if the young master did not realize the value of the dungeon, he would fall into despair until Nellin appeared in his life. Then a lot of money could be made on this dungeon. Waylene does not understand that if the deposits of the magic stone become known before he attends the evening of Duke Adelvia, he believes that then he would not fall in the eyes of his father, and this would help his business. However, the main character believes that this would put an end to the plot of the novel. But suddenly, a thought came to her, and she does not understand why she did not think of this before. The girl believes that if she can interfere with the plot a little, she will buy herself some more time before the events of the novel begin. Since Gellard is the main character, he will turn into an obsessive protagonist, no matter what happens, and one way or another, Gellard and Nellin will find each other. The lady tells Marine that she needs to see the gentleman urgently, because she believes that in the end, their affairs after death are no longer her business. The gentleman says that the dungeon is large, but he does not see any traces of monsters anywhere, and believes that they are probably not there. The man says that it is possible that this is a collector's dungeon, but he needs to check to make sure, and at that time, he thought that he does not understand why he should report to this child. The protagonist thought that he was originally just going to send a few lower-ranking guild members to deal with this, and asks if they think he invested money in building the guild, so they would send him slackers. At this time, the man thought about what he heard, that the gentleman was pitifully sweet and kind, and then said that he had one problem. The knight says that the entrance to the dungeon is next to the vineyard. Hearing this, Gellard asks in surprise what he means. The man explains that they are trying not to damage the culture while inspecting the dungeon, but since the entrance is the most dangerous area, they should widen it. At this time, the young master thought that he was going crazy because he realized that he could lose half of his land and did not know whether to tell his father about the dungeon because he believed that he would need to compensate for all the losses. At this time, the main character approaches the guy and suggests that he wake up because she will help him. A few hours earlier, The young lady thought that usually at this time, Indigo is not in the handsome man's room. But suddenly, he asks the lady what brought her to this place. The main character tells the butler that she needs his help. Waylon asks him to take her to the vineyard. He asks her in surprise if she is going to the vineyard and then says that she should rest in her bed. The main character claims that now is not the time because she needs to get there as soon as possible, even if she has to use a teleport. At this time, the maid thought that she was surprised when her mistress said that she urgently needed to go to the vineyard and thought that it must be because she really wanted to see her master because her illness had become less serious, and she also wanted to be happy. Marin asks the butler to help Waylon find Gellard. At this time, Indigo does not understand why Marine is so worried about this, and then agrees and says that he will help them, but only if the teleporter is available for use. The butler says that the teleport of Archduke Lieseltane is in the main building. Hearing this, the girl remembered the Duke's words, that she cannot use the main building while living as a lodger. At this time, the young lady does not understand what to do, because she knows that she cannot just sneak inside. Indigo asks the lady why she needs to go to the vineyard. She replies that she heard that a large dungeon was discovered there. At this time, the butler does not understand how she found out, and the lady claims that she can help Gellard explore it, but she needs to get there as soon as possible. The young lady feels awkward about putting the Indigo in such a difficult situation, but she knows she can't do otherwise right now. The butler says that then he will ask her only to wait in the bedroom until he returns. The main character thought that he must have overheard their conversation in the hallway, and then says that she understands and asks to let her know when he gets an answer. Thanks to Indigo's efforts, she was allowed to meet with the Archduke in his office. The maid tells the mistress that Gellard ordered a thermos especially for her because it keeps warm for several hours in a row, and then says that she should drink it before leaving. Hearing this, the girl was surprised because she did not understand when he managed to prepare this for her, and then she drinks the medicine because she understands that she should not give even a hint of illness at the meeting with the Archduke. Waylon knows that they are already not thrilled with her and therefore thinks that there is no need to give him even more reasons to kick her out of there. The lady asks the maid if she will help her get ready, and then explains that she needs to look neat and presentable, but not too pretentious. The girl says that as far as she understands, she has a plan. Waylon, being in the main building, does not understand why there is so little there. The servant informs the lady that the Archduke will come to her in a minute, and therefore suggests waiting for him. The main character thought that his office was more modest than the Gellard's office. At this time, the Duke was watching the girl. He thought that she had arrived before him, but all this time she had maintained her posture. Kellen remembers that she was unflappable at the engagement ceremony, which means her upbringing in Orlando's family was not in vain. However, he wonders if she can keep her composure, knowing that her fiancé is an illegitimate son. The gentleman says that he thought that she would not take a step into the main estate without a good reason, and then asks what happened. Waylon says that his lordship is right, and she tried to follow his rules as best she could. The girl reports that she adapted to the annexee so easily that she wanted to thank him for his generosity in person. And at this time, the main character thought about how he came so suddenly, and she was caught off guard, but she thinks that, thank God, her body remembers everything she learned before. The gentleman thought that this girl had good manners and didn't wear too much makeup, and then offered her some tea. Waylon believes that, judging by his taciturnity, the Archduke must be similar to the character from the original novel. The young lady realizes that there is a special reason why she chose a simple and neat outfit for her meeting with him. Gellard's mother, Celestine, was the greatest dancer in the entire empire, and she and the Archduke valued simplicity. Even when they went on dates, Celestine always showed her true emotions, and the Archduke found comfort in her down-to-earth nature. At this time, the Duke thought that his son had fallen in love with such a modest girl, and therefore believed that, like father, like son. The main character understands that, judging by his facial expression, the conversation will go off without a hitch. The gentleman says that there was no need to come all this way just to thank him. She asks if it is not too late to show her gratitude. The lady explains that she just wanted to thank him because of her own selfishness, and then apologizes for it taking so long, and explains that she didn't mean to disobey him and come without a good reason. Hearing this, the Duke thought that he had expressed himself so rudely, but she was still smiling and suggested to him that Lady Wayland was tougher than she seemed. Kellen thinks that she can surely put an end to all the haters of Gellard, and then asks what the special reason for this conversation is. At this time, the main character thought that he reminds her son so much, and they have the same look. She says that Gellard is very similar to his lordship, and at this time, she thought about why she said it out loud. Wayland explains to the master that this is not what she meant. He says that for someone from the Orlando family, she has a keen eye. The main character thought that he must value his son highly, and it seems to her that he cares about him very much. The girl doesn't understand what he meant for someone from Orlando's family. She became interested in whether there is some kind of history between Orlando and the Lyseltanes. The young lady remembers that it would be obvious that he doesn't like the fact that she is from Orlando's family when they were riding in the carriage, and she wonders if something could happen that is not in the novel. Wayland says that with all due respect to His Majesty, his facial expression was so reminiscent of Gellard's that she was surprised that sometimes her fiancé makes an attentive face just like him. The girl assumes that he probably respects him, and she meant his lordship. The Duke says he assumes that the child has taken a lot from him, but he's not sure if she knows it. But when he was about 10 years old, he once composed an entire opera about his dazzling appearance. Hearing this, the main character thought that the Archduke loves his son very much and he completely admires him. At this time, the butler thought that he was worried, because he thought that something might happen when Lady Wayland did not return after more than an hour. Well, when he saw that the Duke had left the room, he said that she could go out and do whatever she needed, and then thanked her for such a wonderful conversation. Indigo doesn't understand how she charmed the Archduke. At this time, the main character turns to her fiancé and says that if he does not allow her to join the expedition, she will go alone. The girl says that she may seem reckless, but asks to trust her. Gellard says he knows she's knowledgeable in many areas due to her lessons in noble etiquette, and then claims she doesn't understand what she's getting into. Wayland explains that she is not asking to be taken as an aristocrat, but that she wants to help him as her partner and fiancé. The young lady takes the gentleman by the hand and asks him to allow her, and then says that they should trust each other, and at that time she thought about the fact that she even told him about her illness. The main character claims that she trusts him completely and asks if he will trust her too, and at that time she thought that, to be precise, she is completely confident in their contract, but understands that it is not important now. Wayland looked at the guy and thought that she had gone too far because she understood that they were effectively engaged and the contract would last for 2 years. At this time, the maid was watching them and thought that Lady Wayland was more straightforward than she thought. Gellard agrees, but only on one condition. He asks not to talk about the fact that something might happen and therefore offers to be next to him all this time, no matter how much she wants to explore the dungeon. Having heard this, the main character thought that when she finds the magic stones, she needs to be more careful, and the guy asks her to promise on her little fingers. And she willingly agrees with him. The man tells Mr. Gellard that this is a list of knights who are participating in the excavations. He is surprised to say that the knights he called are not there. The servant explains that the Archduke sent more men when he learned that the lady would be attending. At this point, the gentleman became curious about how she came to be with him. Gellard realizes that she needed her father's permission to enter the main estate and use the teleporter. The guy turns to the girl and says that he heard that she was dating his father, and then asks if it was hard for her. She replies that she is here as he sees it. The young gentleman asks in surprise how she managed to do this. The lady replies that she used him as an excuse, and at that moment, she thought that it would probably be wrong to say such a thing now. Wayland understands that she can't say that he is his weak point, and that they became close by talking about him, even if she says it, who will believe her? The young lady replies that it is a company secret, and explains that, technically, they have a business relationship, and therefore she cannot reveal her cards to him. Hearing this, Gellard smiled and thought that she got out of this situation like a fox, and thought it was very cute. At this time, the main character looked at her fiancé and thought that she had never seen him smile so widely. The guy says he's apologizing because he didn't realize he was infringing on Milady's company secret. And then he says it was rude of him, and at that moment, he thought that it probably looked like he was evading the answer. Gellard asks if she told his father about the illness. She says she didn't, because she knows if he finds out, he might think it's a disgraceful engagement. She then says she's not feeling well, but wants to keep it a secret for as long as she can. The girl understands that the real shame will be that she did not tell the whole truth about her past. And she says that, after all, she would not want any restrictions in movement, as he presented her for participation in the expeditions. Gellard explains that this is something else, but the girl doesn't want to listen and asks if they're going to go already. The main character understands that they are finally entering the dungeon and believes that this should help her live longer and bring honor and wealth to Gellard. While in the dungeon, Waylon realizes that she can't see anything and doesn't even know how to find the magic stones. She realizes that her fiancé, as expected, isn't even interested in looking around. The man says that, unfortunately, this dungeon is most likely an empty place. Hearing this, the young gentleman was surprised, and the young lady thought that they should just wait a little. After walking a little, the main character touches the magic stones, and at that time it became light in the dungeon. And at that time, it seemed to her as if suddenly warmth filled her soul, and it became so comfortable after all the suffering. Gellard asks the girl if she cut herself, and then grabs her hand and says that she really doesn't know how to take care of herself. At this time, the main character thought that she strongly doubted that anyone here and now was more concerned about prolonging her life than she was. And looking at her fiancé, she thought that he was becoming more attractive in this situation. William tells her that she is fine, because he thinks that she can just lick her wounds. He says that he is surprised that she knows the customs of old wives. Meanwhile, the girl asks him to let her go. The guy reminds her that she said she needed to lick the wound, and then goes and does just that. At this time, the main character thought that he was talking like a Gellard from a novel, and she wondered if he was flirting with her. The young master says that he did everything as she said, and thinks that it should be enough. And at this time, the butler thought that finally love came into the master's life. While in thought that her heart was beating wildly because of arrhythmia, but definitely not because of the wound on her finger, and she firmly thinks that it is definitely arrhythmia. She does not understand why it is so hard for her to breathe and thinks that it seems like there is poison in the air. The main character understands that at this rate he will hear her heartbeat, and she believes that if he understands that she has arrhythmia, he will start sticking his nose into everything from that moment on. At this time, Gellard does not understand why everything is fine except his heart, and it seems to him that he has lost his form and needs to increase his training. In the end, the two never figured out the cause of the rapid heartbeat. The lady asks her friend if she has heard of the dungeon of Archduke Lisselton. The lady with the blonde hair replies that, of course she has, and wonders if it appeared under the vineyard at night. The friend says that it became a dungeon with magical stones. She thinks that Sir Gellard was probably upset because it turned out to be empty, but then someone else revealed the truth about this dungeon. The green-haired girl says that it was none other than his fiancée Lady Wylan of the Orlando family. And as far as she knows, he himself healed her when she got hurt in the dungeon. The lady says that perhaps Lady Valen knew from the beginning that Gellard was the god's favorite. After all, she heard that the lady wanted to win the trust of Archduke Lisseltane. The lady says that not only has she picked up a handsome man, but she also has a good reputation and wealth beyond her imagination. She says that she would cry with envy if he were not an illegitimate child. Meanwhile, while rumors about these two were spreading in society, they were having a good time. Willan turns to her fiancé and says in surprise that it is too much and too much. He objects and says that it is nonsense because he thinks that it is not that much. The main character claims that this is a hell of a lot, because I'm serious, take it, and he tries to give her 70% of the income from the profit from the magic stone. The young lady realizes that this could cover the entire period of their 2-year contract. Gellard informs her that without her, he would have made the biggest mistake of his life, and this is less than he can repay. The girl knows that in the novella, he really regretted it all his life, although he understood that this was how he showed his nobility, but it doesn't fit in his head. Waylon doesn't want to give him a chance to get out of a promise made on her fingers. She knows that, with such a mountain of money, she might still have some left over after buying the title. The young lady recalls that she had only thought about saving for the past 2 years, and therefore was going to find a job, and she wonders what would happen if she became obscenely rich. She assumes that she would then be able to live the rest of her life in peace and comfort. The main character thinks that she will try and buy the title herself, and she thinks that the world has suddenly become so bright, full of beauty and hope. And then she says that it is excellent, and she is looking forward to collaborating with the blue one. Gellard asks how it is with the partner. He informs that from now on, she will receive a share of the profits from his business. And this is a matter of course between business partners, because she will receive 70% of the profits. The girl asks where it says this in the contract. He shows her with his finger on the paper where it was written. The guy says that Weilin, who is responsible for advising the Gellard, must collect information about the magic stones, including their location and equipment, and provide the information to the master. At this time, the main character does not understand how she could see this if it is written in such small letters. The young gentleman tells the girl that she has stumbled upon a dungeon with magical stones, but that does not mean she can plop down on a chair and relax. He says he understands what the lady is trying to say, but suggests she not tell him. Gellard asks if she has ever thought about taking advantage of unearned income. At this time, the main character understands that she interfered with the plot of the novel, and therefore believes that Gellard will not regret her decision for the rest of her life, because it seems to her that she took the burden of regrets upon herself. Weilin says she is honored to have met such an impressive partner as him. The Duke asks his son if he has decided to make his bride. His business partner, Gellard, says that she is smart and has a keen eye. Kellen thought that she had already noticed or guessed about his love for his son, not to mention what she had found in the dungeon. The Duke sent his doctor as soon as he heard that Weilin was injured, and he reported to the master about the girl's shock. The Archduke doesn't know, but Weilin bribed him. The doctor told the gentleman that she got hurt when she tried to feel a sharp stone, and there are a lot of scars around the wound, so it's not an injury from a fall. The doctor said this because Weilin ordered him to keep quiet about her illness. Gellard tells his father that he taught him that when you reach a dead end, you need to look at things from a different angle. Hearing this, the gentleman thought that he remembers what he taught him, and this makes him very happy. The Duke says that they have been businessmen for too long, and therefore he cannot help except by looking at the situation from that angle. Kellen says that if you compare Weilin, a noblewoman who does not influence business, not to mention work experience, and according to him, she has consumer awareness. The young gentleman tells his father that he never ceases to amaze him, and then he says that he wanted to work with her to get the maximum profit from the minimum of magic stones. Hearing this, the Duke thought that he had not planned to immediately reject his decision, but he had to admit that he should reward Weilin for such a beneficial influence on Gellard, and he did not understand how she managed to have only a positive effect on him. The guy says that the profit from the dungeon exceeds the profit from the vineyard. At this time, the father thought that if they managed to build a relationship and trust each other in such a short time, then it was all thanks to Weilin. And then he says that he approves and offers to let him invest in him. Having scared this guy, he asks his father in surprise if he wants to contribute to his plan, and then asks if he is joking. Kellen says that he thinks he is his first investor, and then asks if that is true, because he thinks he did provide him with swords on the expedition. Receiving investment from Kalayan is the highest level of recognition and honor, as he values meritocracy above all else. Gellard screams and tells his father that he certainly won't disappoint him, and at that moment, he thinks that he wants to rush to his bride right now and tell her the wonderful news. The guy wondered what her face would be like when he told her that he had received his father's approval thanks to her. He wondered if she would be surprised or happy or congratulate him. He also assumed that she might choke and cough. The Archduke says that he doubted until the very end, but it seems that he has truly fallen in love and asks if he is thinking about her right now. Hearing this, the boy asks in surprise how he guessed this. The father asks how he couldn't, because he thinks he is a child of dizzying love. At this time, the young master remembered that he only had a strict contract with her that defined their relationship without any room for feelings, and therefore neither he nor Weilin could love each other. Gellard wonders if she's not happy with the way things are turning out. Then he remembers that she didn't seem very happy when he suggested they become business partners. The guy thought that maybe she was upset because she was being forced to do something she didn't want to do, and therefore he thought that he should come back later. But suddenly, the main character asks the groom what he is doing in this place, At this time, he thought that she was not in the room and then asks where she came from. The girl explains that she was in the library and then says that even though they are partners, they shouldn't quit their lessons. And at that moment, the guy thought that he didn't even know that she could go somewhere. Gellard thought that he was in such a good mood that he came to her without thinking. The lady asks why he was looking for her, and also wonders if something happened. Gellard thought that the poison from the dungeon must still be in his blood, and the young lady does not understand what is wrong with him and why he is so upset about her going to the library. She assumes that he came all the way to talk about business. Waylon says that he would rather discuss the magic stones than continue his studies, but he believes that she was in the library for his own good. The main character saw that he was holding something in his hands, and she became curious about what it was. And when she looked closer, she realized that it was Baumkuchen, which is sold only in the capital and is a special kind of pastry. The girl recalls that this was an unaffordable luxury for her in her parents' house. The young lady heard that he had met his father, and she wondered if it was true. Then she remembers that the bakery is next to Nellen's shop, and she asks the boy if he had met him. Gellard replies that he saw her, and at that time the girl thought that she had interfered in the dungeon to prolong her life. But it seemed to her that everything she was doing was pointless because the events of the novella would happen anyway. The novella begins at the moment when Nellen saves Gellard, who is at the bottom, and the girl believes that Waylon has a chance to change everything. The main character thought that, as it was said in the contract, she doesn't need to worry about who Gellard will get involved with, and therefore, as long as she follows this, he won't have any problems with her. The young gentleman looked at the girl and did not understand why she became gloomy as soon as she found out that he was dating his father. Or he wondered if she had already found out that he had told his father about their business relationship, but he believed that even in this case she would not be in any danger. Gellard reflects that she is seriously considering receiving unearned income and therefore believes that it would not be very surprising if the girl was an ordinary noblewoman who grew up in hothouse conditions among the aristocracy. The boy understands that in any case, Viling is different from others. From an early age, Gellard learned to read people in order to survive in the hostile environment that surrounded him. He saw a certain type of desperation in the girl, and therefore thought that they were similar in this regard. Despite this, the young lady always looked confident and elegant, and it was despair that he felt connected to. If he was wrong about this connection, the thought of it would devastate his heart. Gellard says that it's time for him to go to the next meeting, and the girl offers to take good care of him. The maid tells the mistress that she thinks that the infection was transmitted to her wound through the master's saliva, and when she looks at the finger, she says that it is already healing. Marin says that her leg doesn't look any better, and therefore thinks that it's all her fault, and she's very sorry. Waylon says that this is nonsense because her skin is simply too sensitive, and that's all, and therefore suggests that the maid not blame herself for this. When the maid bandaged the lady's leg, she thanked her, and reminded her that, as she had said before, she should keep her wound a secret. Marine says that she will keep it a secret from the master. At this time, the main character thought that if he found out that it was difficult for her to walk because of the bandage on her leg, he might refuse her next requests. Waylon thanks the maid and says that she can go and rest now. At this time, Marin thought that her mistress had just returned from the library, and understood that if the lady did not take care of herself, then it would become her responsibility to make sure that everything was okay with her. The butler asks the maid if the lady's finger has healed yet, but she doesn't even know how to answer correctly. At this time, Mr. Gellard thought that he should go to her right now, and suggests leaving a request to use the teleport, because he believes that the infection in the finger is a serious reason. The surprised girl asks why he is behaving like this, and she does not understand whether he is thinking about what he is doing since he picked her up in his arms. The guy thought that the lady didn't weigh that much, and thought that it was because of illness. Waylon asks her fiancé to let her go, but he says that only if she listens to him first. The girl looked at him and thought that he was very handsome, and at that moment she realized that she was thinking about the wrong thing. Gellard says he heard that her finger wasn't healed yet, and then looked at it and thought it didn't look like the wound was infected. The young gentleman asks her to wait, and then tells her that he will bring bandages. At this time, she thought that she always knew that this guy is incredibly strong, and he is known not only for his strength, because he is good at many other things. The girl remembers that in the novel, he was also very experienced in kissing, and she is interested in what it would be like to feel this on her. Willian realizes that she is amazed that Nellen was able to handle all of this at all. Gellard tells the girl to show him her foot. She says that her foot is covered in calluses, and if it is not treated, it will leave a scar. The guy says that he just wants to examine her and suggests that she understand him correctly. At this time, the main character does not understand what he means, and the guy takes her leg and then removes the bandage. He says that this injury is the very reason why he did not want her to send him to the dungeon. The girl explains that on the day he skipped their class, the day he went to the dungeon, she waited for him for several hours. He was surprised to hear this. Waylon thought that it seemed that Indigo had not mentioned it to him yet, and then she explains that she had not received any news from him, and she could not go into his office while he was not there. Gellard asks if this means she joined the expedition despite feeling unwell. The young lady claims that this is not the case. The young master apologizes because he couldn't warn her in advance and upset her, and at that time she thought that she deserves this apology. But he is not the type to apologize so easily. In the original novel, Gellard is portrayed as an overly proud man. He couldn't even admit that he liked a man. And even after Nellen's kidnapping and imprisonment, he still couldn't come to terms with the fact that he was gay. The young lady thinks that if he denied deep feelings for this guy, then his apology to her is not so sincere, and suggests that maybe it is easy for him to say this because she is not Nellen's. Gellard says he's sorry he made her walk so much that she got blisters, and for making her show him her feet. The girl says that an apology is enough and asks him to stand up. She says that she understands that his plans have changed due to an urgent matter, and therefore hopes that next time he will tell her first thing. Waylene says it would be nice to know that he also thinks her time is valuable. He explains that it just never occurred to him that someone would wait for him, which is why he acted so selfishly. The young gentleman announces that from now on, he vows to give priority to his promises to her, no matter what, because now they are business partners, and he believes that this is more than enough reason to officially plan their time together. At this time, the main character thought that at first she was a little taken aback by this, but this relationship as a business partner begins to irritate her. The guy looked and thought that she still seemed unhappy with this business partnership, and therefore thought that he would have to convince her otherwise. However, he wondered if this would work at all, since it seemed to him that the lady was not so interested in him. Waylon was the first girl who was clearly not charmed by his dashing appearance, and she was the girl who showed no interest in him at all. The young gentleman thought that he should come up with a plan, and then said that they should finish the conversation, and he would call a doctor to examine her. The main character thought that she had almost forgotten that aristocrats always make a fuss, even over the slightest injuries, and she didn't even have time to ask him why she needed a doctor at all. Lobel asks his brother if he seriously thinks they should go there. Tiorian suggests they see where his cowardly indecision has led them. Then with a cry, he announces that he is fed up with how much their father favors Gellard. Tiorian says that he now owns a whole dungeon of magic stones thanks to his sister-in-law. His brother suggests that he not shout so much, because his father might hear. The man says that let him hear, because he thinks that it is all his fault, because he abandoned his own family to fool around with his mistress. Tiorian says that this bastard Gellard is going to go to the estate of Duke Adelvian, and he is sure of it, and also believes that even he cannot attend the Duke's receptions since he does not have a bride. Lobel thought about how he was angry because he didn't marry first, and thought that he knew his brother was stupid, but didn't know he was that stupid. An hour earlier, the Duke's eldest son thought about challenging his decision and investing in that bastard's new venture, and then tells his father that he heard that he went to bed with a Gellard. Father says he thinks he should explain why he didn't show up for the Gellard's engagement party. Then he reminds him that he told him to show up no matter what, for God's sake, because he's his brother. At this time, the son thought that his father was doing this again for the sake of the Gellard, and believed that he had always been like this. When the younger brother's mother was alive, the father practically lived in Annex. From there, he managed his business and all the finances, and after her death, he suddenly decided to renew Annex. After the rebuilding, the Annex was indistinguishable from the main building, and the rooms that are not used in the main estate are furnished more poorly than the rooms in the annex. Teorian asks his father for forgiveness and explains that he sincerely wanted to come to the engagement, but pests appeared in the vineyard and they needed to be dealt with. The father says he doesn't want to listen to his excuses, but the son claims that it's true and he was busy. The count stands up and screaming reminds him that he said he would not listen to his excuses, and then offers to look at Gellard and says that, even after exploring the dungeon under his share, he has no problems with his vineyard. The father says that he hasn't even taken control of the pest situation, and then asks how dare he ask him for more land? At this time, Teorian thought that he should keep himself under control, because he believed that, as soon as the old man died, the entire estate would be his. The eldest son says he heard that Count Orlando's daughter was helping with the research. The father asks why he still calls her the Count's daughter, and then claims that she is his brother's fiancée and is living with them. The son says that he thought that his father did not think the best of Count Orlando. The Count says that Waylon is different and does not resemble the Orlando family, and then claims that, besides, Gellard always knew how to judge people correctly. Kellen asks if he hasn't introduced himself to her properly. Teorian screams and asks if he is talking about how he should go and introduce himself first to this bastard's fiancée. The father asks in surprise if he still calls his brother such derogatory names. The son says that it doesn't matter. The Duke says that he is asking him to be friends with his brother, not in order to have a peaceful dinner with his family, and then asks how he can allow him to enter the business when he does not even accept his brother, and then leaves. At this time, Teorian was left alone and thought that he was the eldest son and not some illegitimate child. He believes that if this is his father's true desire, then he should not have brought a mistress, because he believes that he is the only one who destroyed the happiness of their family. The older brother says that he will not stop until he makes this bastard's life unbearable. Lobel thought that if his idiot brother was going to drag Gellard down, he should be on his side for a while. Theorion tells his brother that he has no desire to watch this bastard descend into madness. Lobel asks what he means. He replies that this is the only way his anger will subside, because he is looking forward to it. After a while, the main character looked at her leg and thought that it had healed faster than she thought. And then she says that she was surprised when her fiancé called 7 doctors. Whelan realizes that it was thanks to them that she was able to recover so quickly, and she wonders if she should go back to making a plan. The girl understands that she must save up enough money in 2 years so that she can be independent by becoming a tutor, but she changes her plan in order to acquire a title so that she can protect herself from the aristocracy. The young lady understands that not much has changed, but still Gellard met Nellen and therefore believes that she should be on top. The maid informs the mistress that Lord Teorian and Lord Lobel Lieselstein have come to see her. She tells the maid to tell them to wait for her for a minute. The older brother says that first he wants to congratulate the lady on her engagement. She thanks him for his kind words, and at that moment she thinks that he obviously didn't mean it that way, because she realizes that it's been an eternity since their engagement. At this time, the gentleman thought that thinking about this is their first meeting face to face, and the main character is impressed because their blue hair and eyes stand out so much, and thinks that they have definitely inherited the Lieseltane genes. Whelan believes that in any case, Gellard resembles his mother, which makes his fate much sadder. Moreover, the novel said that his brothers were born in shameful circumstances. The girl became curious about these shameful circumstances. Teorian asks why the noblewoman, how she got involved with this. The girl thought that Lobel probably has a cowardly character, but she assumes that he will abandon his brother when he becomes uninteresting to him. And she also thinks that perhaps he is still a coward. The gentleman says that he thinks she is curious about why they came to her. The lady replies that it surprised her. Lobel says they just wanted to give her a fair warning in person, and therefore feel it would be best to listen to them. At this time, the main character thought that she would, of course, rather believe in a cult. Teorian claims that the lady was deceived. She asks in surprise what he means. The man says that this scoundrel is deceiving her right now. Whelan thought that maybe listening to them wasn't such a bad idea, and so she decided to just listen to what they had to say. The older brother says that if she doesn't believe him, then just let her look at Gellard's mother, and then she will see what kind of person he is. Tiorian says he was worried that she wouldn't be able to handle the weight of the news, and was therefore torn about whether he should tell her or not. Lobel says that his brother is right, and they couldn't just sit and watch her get cheated. Hearing this, the girl smiled, and thought that it probably looks like that from the outside, even if she knows absolutely everything about the groom's past. The main character believes that based on the information from the Dark Guild, and even if Wei Lin is the legitimate daughter of Count Orlando, she was constantly compared to her half-sister. And Count Orlando spent a lot of money to hide it. Whelan believes that given such a past, if she finds out the truth about Gellard, she will be disgusted by Togo. He is so similar to her sister. At this time, Tiorian thought that she was probably already interested in him. And at this time, the main character thought that if she found out the truth about the groom, she would be disappointed, and also assumed that she would take their side. The young lady understands that, unlike her, they have never known domestic violence, and she does not understand why they think that they are in the same boat. And besides, she has never supplied Italina. Wayland knew what it was like to hate your half-siblings, but she still hurt and despised Etheline when they were children. The main character understands that there is a huge difference, because these brothers were heirs, and Waylene was an heiress, and moreover, they never put up with ignoring and violence. After all, this is what the main character encountered under the pretext of training. Tiorian tells her that they could help her. At this time, the young lady thought about how she lived like a criminal in her own home. The elder brother says it wouldn't be a big deal if she figured it out on her own. The lady says she appreciates their suggestions, but will look into the matter herself. Valen thought that she understood that the best choice would be to support the legitimate heir. But this would be possible if she lived as Valen Lieseltane. However, the main character refuses to be associated with the Orlando or Lieselant surnames, and decides to live this moment as Waylin after all, until Gellard and Nelan are together. Everything will go on as usual. The lady says that it is more important for her to keep the engagement, and then says that if they don't mind, then she should leave already. The surprised older brother says that they just arrived, and Labelle thinks that they better go back now, and says that if the lady needs their help, then she can speak at any time. William thought that they probably came after hearing about the Archduke's investments in the dungeon with magic stones, and understood that this situation needed to be delicately resolved. Suddenly, the protagonist doesn't understand why this thought didn't occur to her, before she ponders that if they thought she hated Gellard because of her relationship with Edelina, then that means they know she grew up in a violent home in the Orlando estate. The girl believes that they are going to use the fact that she dated them to distort the truth, and then her fiancé will find out that she is not quite the ideal heiress. Waylon wonders how they knew about her past. The maid asks the mistress if something happened, and then she saw the lady lying on the floor, and there was a red liquid next to her. Marin fearfully asks Milady if she can hear her, and then she says that she has lost a lot of blood, and a doctor has come who gave her this magic bracelet. The maid says that luckily he said that she was coughing up bad blood, and therefore thinks that the bracelet should help her produce good blood. The butler says that he will call the master right away, and the main character asks in surprise if he wants to call Gellard. The servant explains that he asked to call him as soon as the lady wakes up, and then says that he is now in the vineyard. At this time, Violen thought that she had literally risen from the dead, but still did not feel lonely without him. Valen's death was predetermined and inevitable, and she believed that her pain meant nothing to Gellard. Marin tries to feed the lady, but she objects because she said she can eat herself. The maid says that the bracelet on her wrist must be uncomfortable, and therefore asks to be allowed to feed Milady. The main character thought that if she were in her shoes, she would be in great shock seeing her mistress faint. She understands that this has begun to happen much more often now. As soon as the events of the novel began to happen, one after another, the inevitable death of the villain was getting closer and closer. The young lady reflects on how she has never heard of anyone vomiting red liquid due to toxins before, and wonders what kind of illness Lady Wyling might be suffering from. At this time, the maid thought that it seemed that the mistress had gotten better for a while, but when the symptoms returned, her condition began to deteriorate so quickly, and she began to wonder what went wrong. Maureen recalls that the scars she received in the dungeon did not heal very quickly. The maid asks the mistress how her stomach feels. She replies that she feels much better. Moran says that she will go and get another plate. The young lady says that she is already full, but the maid objects and says that she should eat enough to get better faster. Waylon says she thinks she'll have to give the master a book on how to learn to read people's emotions. When Maureen left the room, she became curious about what the lords were talking about. She fulfilled that Mr. Gellard and Lady Waylon visited the dungeon together, and later he began to choke, claiming that it was because of the poisonous air in the dungeon. And at that time, the maid thought that he didn't even know about her feelings. The butler says that the air in the dungeon could well have been poisonous, since that is why the term dungeon disease appeared. Marin thought that Mr. Gellard was the reason why the lady's condition had worsened, because she believed that she had inhaled too much of that poisonous air from the dungeon because of him. The blonde maid claims that in the master's case, it was not the poisonous air. Indigo says that this is true, because all these symptoms appeared because of his feelings, and Lady Waylon. And he does not understand how the master could confuse his feelings of love with the side effects of the poison. The guy tells the master that there are so many magic stones in the dungeon and thinks that they must have one of the highest daily production rates in the entire empire. Gellard asks that you try your best not to damage the magical plants during the extraction process. The guy asks why the gentleman is going to use the magical plants from the dungeon. He replies that it's time for him to go, and he thinks about how he heard that. Wylan lost consciousness again, but he understands that this doesn't mean that if he were there, he could somehow help her. The young master thinks that it would be better if he uses this time to find a cure for the disease. After one of the doctors mentioned that Waylene might be suffering from a dungeon disease, Gellard began studying all the books related to magic, and then he came across something interesting. The plant growing in the magical dungeon can be used as medicinal herbs, regardless of the type of plant itself. And so he began to collect plants from the dungeon. Gellard suggested that perhaps these plants might be the key to curing Wyland's disease. The main character asks Maureen what happened to her. She replies that it is only her guess and asks if she could read it. The maid says that she knows that this is insignificant compared to the research she does to conduct her lessons properly, but she wants to help her mistress in any way she can. At this time, the young lady does not understand what this could be and why Marin looks so exhausted. The maid says that she too thinks that her lady has fallen ill with the dungeon disease. The butler informs the lady that Count Orlando has arrived to visit her. Hearing this, the main character is surprised and wonders why he decided to show up. The girl assumes that he wants to warn her not to cause any harm to Orlando's family, but she knows that no matter how important his reason for visiting is, she cannot allow him to see her like this. Waylin was under constant pressure to be perfect, refusing to give her destiny any chance to be justified. The young lady thought that she was so tired of being treated like she was worthless, and then she asked for some time so that Moran could prepare her. Hearing this, the maid was surprised, and the mistress assured her that she was fine, and then said that she needed a little time to rest a little. Indigo tells the master that his bride looks paler than usual, and he has already called the doctor, and no matter how it is presented, it seems to him that this is connected with the arrival of her father. Hearing this, the guy thought that it was because she was afraid that Count Orlando would find out about her illness, but he did not understand why she should hide her illness for such a long time. Gellard asks the butler to take her to Waylin. The servant reports that Count Orlando has already arrived. Hearing this, the Count thinks that rumors have reached him after all, and believes that one should not expect less from such a mercantile man as he. Teorian thought that he probably came to force his daughter to give him a part of the profits from the dungeon. Kellen's personal shadow guard says the lady appears to be under a lot of stress. The Duke thought that first Lobel and Theorian decided to visit her, and now Orlando has come. The Duke understands that she is undoubtedly in a stressful state now. Kellen says that he will first meet with Count Orlando and suggests telling the Gellard to stay with the bride for now. The Shadow Guardian says that his wish is his command. At this time, Mr. Orlando looked at the estate and thought that now he knew where his daughter lived. Orin immediately took a dislike to Wyland's mother Isolana due to her modest appearance, and therefore agreed to Wyland solely as a trailer. Isolana was born into the family of Viscount Sobin, whose family had several generations of doctors. However, the family found itself in huge debt due to gambling, and after Isolana was practically sold in marriage to Orin, She died giving birth to Waylon. The Viscount's enormous debt fell on the shoulders of Count Orlando. At this time, Oren thought that this girl had caused him nothing but trouble from the very beginning, and just the thought of Isolin made him want to have nothing to do with Waylene. Orlando feels that he can't just sit back and let Waylon marry a wealthy man, and he wonders if she has thought about the dowry he will have to prepare. The gentleman believes that he should take care of this before Edelina starts to get jealous of Waylon. Count Orlando always imagined his life without Waylene peaceful, but at this time he was on the verge of disaster. His problems were mainly due to his mistress, Senorita, who loved to buy expensive things, and Edelina, who complained all day instead of concentrating on her studies. And Orlando thinks that it's all because his daughter left so suddenly, and Waylene was to blame as always. When the Count saw the Archduke, he thought that he looked different than he imagined, and he wondered if he was capable of doing any work, and he assumed that he must have simply used the money earned from the magic stones to buy some potion again. Orlando greets the Duke and asks how he is doing, and then says that he has a fine estate, and so he must admit that he feels a little scared. Kellen asks the guest what brought him here so suddenly. Then he reports that he did not receive a request for a visit. Hearing this, the Count thought that he did not understand why this rare idiot was behaving so coldly towards him, because he did not even offer him a cup of tea, and assumed that he must still be worried about the event of long past years. Orlando reflects that he knew it was not easy, but he thinks he explained what happened then in sufficient detail, and he even recognized him as his son-in-law, and does not understand why he behaves so stingily. The Count explains that he just wants to know if his daughter is okay. The Duke replies that Waylon is fine, and he would even say that she is a little better now than when she lived with him in a tiny attic. Having heard this, the man does not understand how he found out, and assumes that his daughter told him. The gentleman asks what good will happen if people find out that he lives in the attic, and then asks who else can live there as well as he does, and therefore suggests not even hoping that he will sympathize with him. Orlando thought that his daughter couldn't say that, because she thought he was all she had left. He assumed that she would never be able to trust a man she had met only a month ago. Father Waylene asks which attic his lordship is talking about, and then asks if his daughter told him that they had built her into the attic room as a dressing room. The man explains that they were planning to install a fashionable chandelier there soon, and were also thinking about throwing a party once the renovation was completed. And at that moment, he thought that, in fact, this is now Edelina's dressing room. The Duke asks in surprise if this is an attic extension for a dressing room, and then says that he must be talking about his other daughter. And at that time, the gentleman thought that he already knew all the details from the Shadow Guard's report, but he still could not believe that he could so brazenly lie to his face. Kellen wonders if this wasn't his second daughter's closet. Then he argues that it would be impudent to hold an event after Waylon kindly offered her sister her room. The Duke asks if he thinks this is disrespectful to the guests he is about to invite. Hearing this, Orlando does not understand how he found out about all this, and he thought that if he already knows everything, then he will not be able to get out of this, and thinks that it will be much more effective if Waylon comes to this room. The guest screams and asks if Waylon told him this, and then asks where she is. He says to bring him his daughter, who has dishonored the family name, so that he can prove otherwise. Hearing this, the Duke thought that he knew that this man would resort to something like this, and therefore he considers it obvious that he is going to sit her down and make her answer in a way that is advantageous to him. Kellen understands that she has been brainwashed from a young age, and therefore believes that there is a high probability that she will do as Oren wants. The Duke realizes that instead of letting him know about her illness and causing more problems, he thinks it's even better that she's not here, and he thinks he should try to help her if he wants to make Oren's life difficult and also protect her from his influence. The gentleman understands that this will not be an easy task, especially after what happened, and he suggests that he can distract his attention from his daughter with food. But the important question is how to properly take revenge on this bastard. Kellen asks why he really came here. Oren replies that he is going to ask Gellard and Valen to break off their engagement. At this time, the young gentleman came to his bride and asked how she was. The lady replied that she was already better, but she thought that she just needed a good rest, and then apologized for causing him any inconvenience. At this time, Gellard thought that he didn't know, but she was hiding something from him, but wanted her to think only about her health. The guy reports that he heard that she wanted to go to the main estate. She reports that she sent a request for a visit. The groom says that the Archduke is currently receiving guests, and therefore thinks that this is not the best time. He thinks that the girls should not be subjected to unnecessary stress. At this time, the main character thought that he said this because he does not want her to interfere with his father's work. However, she just wants to try to convince Count Orlando not to waste the Archduke's time in vain. The girl does not understand how else she can make it clear that she wants to stay as far away from Count Orlando as possible. The butler informs Milady that her request to visit the main estate has been approved. The guy says that if she goes now, but the girl interrupts him and says that she already knows what he is so worried about. Hearing this, Gellard does not understand why she then insists on going, because she believes that she should rest. Waylon tells him not to worry because she won't do anything that could disgrace the Lisseltane family name. And after all, she's going to spend the next 2 years with him, and she knows the terms of their contract well. However, the young gentleman suggests that she wait, and the girl says that if it is something urgent, then she suggests that they talk about it another time. Gellard thought it was disgusting because she saw him as nothing more than a contract partner, and he spent time trying to look good in front of her, and she didn't even pay attention to him. The guy doesn't understand how he can make her look at him differently. And if you think about one of the conditions of the contract, they agreed not to interfere in each other's personal lives without a good reason, and even if it concerns someone like a lover. The young gentleman understands that he only made things worse for himself. At this time, the main character thought that if suddenly the Archduke decided to take his father's side and abandon her, then she would have to try to stop it. The girl understands that the reason why the Archduke did not want to accept her is connected with his hostility towards her father. However, the Archduke is also unable to resist Gellard, and because he insisted on the engagement with her, William believes that this means that he has gotten better, and now that she has discovered a dungeon with magic stones, thereby earning his trust, then most likely he will want to continue to act in her favor. The main character believes that she must show him that she is no longer Orlando, and thus no suspicion will fall on the Gellard in the future. At this time, the Archduke thought that he wanted to break off the engagement, and could not understand whether he was out of his mind or just a stupid plan. After all, he did not think that Oren was greedy enough to use his daughter's engagement for his own benefit. The gentleman understands that, from what was said earlier, Waylon was brainwashed as a child, and therefore believes that Oren has a huge influence over her. But if we proceed from the fact that she left home not for marriage but for engagement, then most likely the girl really wanted to run away from home. Kellen is thinking that all the years spent brainwashed will not pass without a trace. And Oren probably knows about it, which is why he showed up here without an invitation. The master thinks that this is impudent after receiving a huge dowry from Gellard. Gellard offered the Orlando family a substantial sum of money as a dowry for Waylon's hand and heart, although no one told the main character about this. And in addition, Count Orlando squeezed out all the benefits from selling his daughter as a wife. And if everything went as usual, Waylon would be a pawn in the plan of her greedy father. The Archduke thought that he needed to finish as quickly as possible and find a way to help Waylon. The servant informs the master that a young lady is coming to them. Hearing this, he thought that she had used the permission to visit that he had given her in passing, and thought that maybe she had come to support her father. However, the gentleman understands that this could be a good opportunity, and if her father essentially shackled her mind in shackles, and she did not allow even the thought of freeing herself from these shackles. Kellen thought that he could show the girl that it was possible to fight back, and then she would finally understand that Oren was just a fool. The Duke thought that if he did this, she would trust him, and then said that it seemed that Waylon was already in a hurry to greet his Count Orlando. The man says that he knew she would want to see her beloved dad, and then he looked at the gentleman and says that he thinks he is deep in thought. Oren says that he thinks his proposal to break off the engagement was a bit unexpected, and then says that they realized how much they miss her. The man says that Etelina was upset when her sister left, but the señorita was the one who was especially sad after her departure. Hearing this, the Duke does not understand how he dares to talk about these women in his presence. The Marquis says his wife was worried that she hadn't been able to properly raise Valine before sending her off to a foreign estate, and his daughter was always awkward in society, and so he thinks she was most likely blinded by the Gellard's obsession. Orrin says that the senorita is an incredibly kind woman whose desire is to love and protect her stepdaughter as her own. But if he likes her, he proposes an engagement to His Highness. At this time, the Duke thought that he was a crazy bastard, and he could not believe that he was still trying to sell his daughter. The servant informed His Highness that the lady had arrived, and he suggested that she come to them. The girl greeted the men, and at that time the Duke thought that she was feeling a little better. The father tells his daughter to come to him. Kellen looked at the girl and thought that everything is fine, and even if she comes up, it is just a gesture of respect, and thinks that he just needs to act first. The girl says that a lot of time has passed since their last meeting, and then approaches the Duke and says that considering that she is no longer at home, it is rather impolite towards the Archduke to barge in without an invitation from him. Waylon tells him not to misunderstand her, because she says this because she cares about him. Hearing this, the father does not understand why his daughter is so confident in herself, but he believes that the past, Waylon, has not yet disappeared. Oreo thinks that only because of the time spent in the Archduke's house, her upbringing has not yet disappeared. The daughter says that he is there, and therefore thinks that there is no room for worry, and then asks if her father chewed well. The Marquis replies that, of course not, and then asks how they can be good without her. He says that the estate is empty and everyone is experiencing her departure painfully. And at that time, she thought about how she always longed to be part of the family. The father thought that he was giving her the love that she so desperately wanted to receive from them, and believed that if she wanted to be useful, then let her do so. Oreo says he is glad to see his daughter doing so well, and then says she looks pretty good. And at this time, the main character remembers that he grabbed her by the hair and asked how she dared to stare at him with her disgusting little eyes, because he told her to stare at the floor. The girl understands that she is not the previous Waylon, but she understands that her arms and legs do not move. Her father says that what she loved most was how he stroked her head. At this time, the Duke took his hand and said that he would be surprised if the girl did not look good after being with him, and then said that as he sees it, the lady is blossoming in the estate, and therefore suggests not to worry about sitting down. Kellen says that in her home, where she lived with him, Count Orlando, it seems to him that the girl is much more comfortable in the estate where she has only lived for a month. Hearing this, the Marquis does not understand what the hell is going on, and thinks that if it were not for him, she would not be here. And he understands that this bastard knows everything, and he is sure of it. The man became curious about where he found out about this, and thought that maybe his daughter told him, because that's why she's so confident. Oreo believes that at this rate, not only will he lose Waylon, but his family name will also be defiled. And so he believes that he must find a way to attend Duke Adelvian's party. Whenever he attended these parties, Waylon was always there to support him, keeping in mind the names of all the guests of their business, and even the latest gossip. So there was no way Oreen could go there without her. He thinks it's okay, because his daughter hasn't completely broken free of his shackles yet. He thinks he still has a plan that he can use to turn this situation around. The father asks his daughter if she missed him and her family. He suggests just telling him, because he would do everything for her. At this time, the main character thought that now she knows that the Archduke hates Orlando's family so much that he fully supports them. She thinks that this means that he and she now have one enemy. Waylon says she didn't miss him. Her father is surprised to hear this. She says she hasn't thought about him or Senorita or Etelina since she started living in this house. The girl says she is very happy to be there, and then asks her father why he came. She says she is only engaged and not married yet, but has already left his nest. But in truth, she had no other choice but to leave. The main character says that she comes here and only reminds her of home and puts her in a hopeless situation. The Archduke says that the girl is absolutely right, and that she has only just begun to feel at home here, and therefore considers it wrong to raise this issue in a conversation about breaking off the engagement. Hearing this, the young lady thought that her father did not come to ask for a share of the dungeon, and he was trying to take her away from there. Kellen says that if this engagement is not what he wanted, then there is nothing to be done since he supports any decision she makes. Waylon realized that he was on her side, and therefore felt that she should take advantage of this opportunity. The girl reports that she now feels safe and comfortable. After all, she first experienced these feelings in the Archduke's castle, and she finally feels at home. Hearing this, Kellen thought that he felt guilty because he did not realize her intelligence and importance, and behaved petty towards her simply because of her last name. The Archduke asks the guest if he heard what she said, and suggests that they leave talk of breaking off the engagement behind them. Waylon tells her father that he just didn't say that he wanted to go against the traditions of the Orlando family, and didn't intend to respect her wishes, or the wishes of the Lieseltanes, just to prove his point. The girl knows that he was always so harsh with her because he was worried about what others would think. He kept it a secret that he sent her to the attic. Kellen asks the lady what happened and what brought her here in such a hurry. The girl replies that she heard that Duke Adelvian is soon arranging an evening, and she would like to attend it with him, the Archduke. Hearing this, the father was surprised, and the main character understands that he needed her as a partner, and that is why he wanted to bring her home. Willian tells the master that he must have many partners with whom he can go there, but she feels that she can be useful to him. At this time, Oreo does not understand how she dares, and then screaming asks how to understand this. The young lady believes that everything is fine, and the Archduke will support her, and therefore she has nothing to fear. The main character says that she would ask him the same question, because she believes that her ancestors would be very disappointed with his behavior. The father asks what she said, and the girl answers what he heard. She says that he always emphasized the importance of demonstrating elegance and dignity, and then asks if he didn't say that the Orlando family did not admit mistakes and strived only for perfection. Waylon says that as his daughter and ex-partner, his wife will say at public events that it breaks her heart to see him let his emotions get the better of him and act so rudely. The girl says that since she did this at the parties, let her give him advice and then tells him to please leave. At this time, the main character thought that she wanted him to leave the castle, and for one of her lives. When Dad left, the girl thought about how she was afraid that he would make a terrible scandal. She does not understand why she was always so compliant, and why it never occurred to her to confront him. The young lady realizes that he is nothing more than a sad and pathetic man, because of all the times she was near the Archduke. Why now? The girl got so excited that she started coughing. The gentleman offers her to drink some warm water quickly and then asks to heat up the stove. He thought that she was coughing because of the cold, but she looks much more serious. Kellen saw the thermos in Marin's hands, a magical artifact, and thought that he could use it for more than just keeping warm. The Archduke does not understand why he was not informed about anything, and assumes that Waylon must be trying to hide the fact that she is ill. The gentleman thought that she was probably afraid to talk about it, because she couldn't miss the events she went to with Oren, and thought that it would explain everything. The man assumes that although she has taken his side, he still does not feel comfortable enough to share such unnecessary information, and he became interested in how to win her trust. Willian turns to His Highness and apologizes. He says that she has nothing to apologize for, and then asks if she is feeling better. The lady replies that much, and thanks. At this time, the gentleman thought about what she had rejected from him, and preferred not to say anything about the coughing fit. Kellen thought about how he was the one who pushed her away first, and thought it was natural that she was wary of him, and he assumed that he would gradually win her trust. The main character thanks him for his help, and says that if it weren't for him, but the gentleman interrupts her, and says that everything is fine, because he believes that there is no point in dwelling on what could have happened. At this time, the girl thought that he continues to show kindness to her, and it seems sincere, and she believes that step by step he will prove that he is on the side of the Lieseltanes. The Archduke asks the lady if she has heard of the Knights of Lieseltane. She replies that she has heard that many of them are professional soldiers. The gentleman says that this is true, and he does not like to talk about it, but he is a staunch supporter of meritocracy. The main character says that she is aware of this. To make matters worse, the Archduke is known to be an extremely cautious man. Despite his trust in Gellard, he has only given him 10,000 square feet of the several hundred he owns. Tiorian tirelessly begged his father and managed to get more than 35. Kellen tells her that he only selects people who demonstrate outstanding skills and talent. At this point, the main character thinks that he must already know that she lived in the attic. Waylon suggests that he most likely thought that she would side with Oren, but she made a different decision. The Archduke says that he knows the lady is smart enough to understand him, and then announces that he wants to formally invite her into the Lieseltane family. The gentleman says that from now on, she will be able to freely enter and exit the main building, but he should not hide behind high walls forever, but rather, he should hold people accountable for the mistakes they have made. Kellen thanks Waylon for helping him make this happen. When the girl came to her room, she thought that she was exhausted, and the Archduke saw her as she was. The young lady realizes that he did not see a noble lady from the Orlando family, but a real Valen who was always bullied and locked in the attic. The girl understands that he not only saw this part of her, but also accepted it. Kellen reminds the girl that she said she wanted to accompany him to Duke Adelvian's party, and then asks if she is sure she will be able to recover by then. Waylon says that she didn't say that just to hurt her father, but it's the honest truth because she wants to go with his lordship, and he tells her not to worry because he will keep it a secret. The young lady thought that, fortunately, he did not know about her contractual engagement to Gellard, and she felt bad because she felt like she was letting the Archduke down. The main character believes that before the events of the novella begin, she must make sure that everything will be okay with him before leaving them, because she understands that this is the least she can do to repay him for his kindness. At this time, the young gentleman knocks on the girl's door and apologizes for disturbing her, then explains that he urgently needs to talk to her. Gellard says he wonders what happened that was so important that she pushed him aside at the entrance to the main building. Then he says that she is not fully healed yet. The guy thought that she found him so unpleasant that she would rather see her father, from whom she had to hide her illness. Waylon suggests that he sit down first, and then apologizes for what happened and explains that she was in a hurry and didn't have time to explain. But as he sees it, she's fine. Gellard says he doesn't know if her father told her, but he agreed to invest in them, and he didn't try to hide it or anything, but wanted to discuss it with her right away. The main character claims that the investments have not been made yet, so everything can be canceled if he wants. And at this time, the girl does not understand why he is so excited, but she assumes that first, she needs to praise him. And she says that it is wonderful. The young gentleman says he couldn't have done it without her help, and the girl objects and thanks him for his hard work. The guy asks why she speaks like that, as if she is making excuses, but he wanted her to understand his intentions correctly, and explains that he didn't want her to think that he had secrets. Waylon asks why he thought she would misunderstand him at all. At this time, the young gentleman thought that he had already forced her to become her business partner, but he was afraid that she would hate him if he also told her about the investment, but he did not understand how to tell him this. Waylon asks if he thought she was upset about becoming his business partner, and then says that she is not, and explains that at first she thought it was not her area of expertise, but was glad he asked. The girl says that maybe they live due to circumstances, but to be honest, they still know absolutely nothing about each other. She says that the guy was so busy with work and other things that he could not prioritize her. The lady claims that now that they have become partners, their schedules will be built much more efficiently, and the title of business partners sounds much better. The main character thought that she hoped that all the misunderstandings with Gellard were resolved. The young master couldn't understand what he was feeling right now because his heart seemed to freeze when she said that they were complete strangers. However, he was happy after hearing that Waylon didn't mind being business partners. Gellard knows that she is usually confident, but today he has noticed a certain vulnerability. And it is strange because he feels as if something has pierced him and he cannot understand what it is. The butler asks the gentleman if he called him to report. The Archduke asks him what he thinks of the two. The servant suggests that he has already heard of their public displays of affection, and therefore thinks that they are quite close. Other than that, he has nothing more to say. Kellen asks if he missed anything, like something about Waylon's health. The gentleman reports that she suddenly started coughing incessantly the last time they saw her. Indigo says that the lady's illness is a severe form of flu, and as far as he knows, it's so serious that they simply can't do anything. Hearing this, the Archduke wondered if she was seriously so ill, and he wondered what was going on in Orlando's house. But considering how she was treated, he was not surprised that she fell ill. The gentleman believes that he should have paid attention to this when he first heard about her past, but he understands that he needs to make sure that she does not get worse. Kellen offers to keep the fact that he knows about her illness a secret. He says that Waylon tried to hide it, and he doesn't want to embarrass her. The butler asks if he could say one more thing to his lordship. Then he says that he is afraid that the Gellert is not allowing Lady Valen to have a proper rest, because he does not want to be separated from her, even for a moment. The gentleman says that he must be head over heels in love, and offers to tell him that they need to meet right now. The Archduke says that this is not good enough, and he wonders if the hotel has a VIP room. The man says that Lord Racine has taken the last remaining VIP rooms. Kellen says to invite the Lord to their main building and send the remaining servants to take care of Lady Valen. The butler apologizes and says that the Lord is a very important guest for the hotel. The Mansion of Greatness is a hotel located on the territory of Great Vineyards. Many people want to spend the night together where the wine was first released. The rooms there are booked a year in advance despite their high cost. The Archduke says they can invite him to his spare wine cellar and he will give him a tour. And this cellar is also known as a wine lover's paradise. Even a sommelier, with a key to the wine cellar of the Imperial Palace, would envy this treasure trove. The cellar, renowned for its first-class security, is famous for the fact that only the Archduke of Leeselton himself has the right to enter it. The butler asks his lordship if he is sure, as he believes that he will have to deal with the consequences of public opinion. At this time, the gentleman thought that he would do everything so that the poor girl could at least rest a little. Indigo informs Lady Valen that she has been granted lifetime access to the Mansion of State. She is surprised and asks what he means by lifetime access. The butler explains that by simply signing the list of VIP clients, she will be able to freely visit the mansion at any time, and then shows the document that the Archduke ordered to be left in her room. At this time, the main character does not understand what is happening. Indigo says that with a panoramic view of the magnificent vineyards and the best wine in the country, she will be able to recover both body and soul. Gellert asks if she thinks it's worth going there. At that moment, the girl thought that she would be happy to rest a little because she wanted to be alone with herself, away from her father and the señorita, and from anyone else, since she had already gone to that length. Willen says that going on vacation at a critical time somehow, and the guy tells her not to worry about it because she needs rest. Gellert thought about the fact that his father was referring to Wyland's health and believed that he deliberately emphasized recovery and therefore was aware of her condition and therefore believed that then he could ask him to call a priest or a wizard for Wyland. The guy thinks that maybe they can find out more information about her illness. The main character reports that the Archduke made every effort to arrange this vacation for her and therefore considers it impolite to refuse. The girl says that she will only be gone for a couple of days, and he suggests that she go through and have a good rest. When the girl arrived at the Mansion of Greatness, she thought that the list of VIP persons included every single influential man and woman of the empire. And she understands that while she is there, she needs to establish relationships with them, because she believes that this will help Gellert in business affairs. The manager says that his name is Rudolvin, and he works in this mansion, and then invites the lady to follow him as he will show her the room. Wayland was surprised by how beautiful this place is and how great the service is. Then she asks the maid if they are in heaven. The manager thought that the lady's manners were impeccable, and during her 30 years of experience in the Mansion of Greatness, he had seen many times how the unusual beauty of this place made aristocrats forget even the most basic rules of behavior. Rudolvin believes that the lady was speechless for just a moment, and he has never seen anyone come to their senses so quickly. The man thinks that Wyleen is elegant and has exquisite taste, and that it would be difficult for the Archduke to impress her. The manager realizes that for the first time in a long time, he will have to work much harder. He believes that she must mean a lot to the Archduke since he dared to cancel Lord Racine's reservation. And so, he will do everything to provide her with the best service. Rudolvin tells the girl that they have arrived and this is her room. He says that welcome to their most spacious room, with a stunning view of the vineyard. Wyland thanked him for his help and thought that he wasn't talking about the royal apartments. The royal apartments in the Mansion of Majesty is a room so beautiful that the emperor himself wanted to buy it. Although he was unable to purchase the room since then, this room is reserved for members of the imperial family. The main character realizes that the Archduke gave up all the profit he could get from this room to allow her to live in it for free, and she wonders what amount we are talking about. And when the man gave her the keys to the royal apartments, the girl thought that maybe it was some kind of mistake. At this time, the manager thought that he did not expect less from her since she had just been handed the keys to the royal apartments, and she did not even bat an eyelid. Rudolvin understands that he must do everything in his power to help such a calm and beautiful person as she is, and he wants the lady to quickly enter the room in order to give her information about the disease of the dungeons. The maid suggests that the mistress hurry to the room, and the main character thought that Marie was rushing her so much and thought that he must want to see the royal apartments as soon as possible. Willian suggests that she take a good rest before dinner. At this time, the guy with red hair asks in surprise what to understand, and then says that he thought that the royal apartments were inaccessible. The manager asks Sir Dolar what brought him to this floor, and he replies that he can go wherever he wants. Hearing the name of this man, the main character realized that this man was Dorella Delvian, and in the entire empire, there is no one who does not know his name. Dorell has exclusive rights to all magic processing technologies in the empire, and he is not only the sole heir to the family fortune, but also a renowned genius. Adelvian became the current emperor's personal tutor, and later his best friend despite being his age, and he is also known for other traits. The gentleman asks who this lady is and why she holds the keys to the royal assortment. Wylan knows that he has quite a personality and is known more than anyone for his snobbish nature. Growing up as the only heir has only strengthened his sense of self-worth. The main character understands that, nevertheless, he is one of those characters she wanted to meet, and she cannot believe that she ran into him like this. Dolar is one of the few straight characters to appear in the original novel, and he was handsome noble in birth, tall in stature, and was met with great enthusiasm by readers. However, it turned out that he was straight after he rejected the emperor's advances at the beginning of the novel. This was sad news for readers who wanted to see a secondary couple in the plot. However, Dorell became a good friend of Nellen. The main character knows that he gave a little respite from all the melancholy in this story, and therefore she was able to finish reading the novella without any problems. And for some reason, it seems to her that she met an old friend. Waylon muses that she could always run into him at one of the parties, but she is happy that she ran into him like this. And besides, he doesn't really care about social status, and so thinks that this could be an opportunity to help the Gellardu. The lady greeted the Duke and said that her name was Waylon Lisseltane, and that she was pleased to meet him. The guy looked at the girl and thought that she wasn't very pretty, but was dressed quite elegantly, and then he said that he didn't think she knew who he was. The lady says that of course he is Sir Adelvian, and at that moment, she thought that it is no secret that many women wanted to become the next Duchess of Adelvian. After all, that is why they chased him, even if they were already married. The gentleman thought that she must have approached him for personal gain like everyone else, and he wondered if she really thought he was an idiot. Dolar took the girl's hand and then shook it harder. Marina asks Milady if she is okay, and the lady replies that everything is fine. At this time, the gentleman thought that he did not want to squeeze her hand so hard, but just wanted to show that he was not a fool. The maid asks the mistress to show her palm, but the lady objects and claims that everything is fine, and then says that she must have scared him and asks if he is okay. Hearing this, Dolar thought that she was worried about him, but she thought that only she was in pain. At this time, the main character thought that he definitely blames himself deep down inside, and she knows that he still has no experience dating, and maybe he is used to shaking hands with men, but has never held hands with a woman. The girl thinks that he squeezed with the force he was used to, and that's why he was scared of her reaction. And then she remembers that she didn't notice his name on the guest list. The lady wondered why he came to the royal apartments without even reserving them. Wylan asks the gentleman what he's staring at. He says that if she has something to say, then let her say it, and then says that if she's upset that he almost broke her palm, then let her say it to his face. The girl doesn't understand why he started defending himself because she just asked if everything was okay. She remembers that in the novel, he was described as an unpredictable character. It is because of this trait that he was so loved by readers and rejected the emperor's feelings. And not to mention his personality, he is a Delvian, and she is the only person there who has something to lose, that is she. The lady apologizes and then says that she must have offended him. At that moment, the girl coughed and asked the maid for some water and left. The guy with red hair doesn't understand why she suddenly started coughing, and he wonders if it happened because of what he said. The gentleman remembers that his father warned him about this, that he should be more gentle towards women. And the last time something similar happened, his father gave him instructions. Duke Adelvian believed that threatening women with the same brute force as men was nothing more than intimidation. Dolar thought he hated to admit it, but it seemed like he had made a mistake, because he didn't understand how he could deny it when she seemed so fragile and weak. The gentleman apologizes, and then says that he thinks he scared her. He apologizes for squeezing her hand too hard and for hanging his voice, and then says that he didn't mean to hurt him. Hearing this, the main character thought that she could not believe that this man was really apologizing. She explains that the problem is that her body is very weak, and therefore she believes that there is no need for an apology. Dolar asks the lady to listen to him and asks if she is really staying in this room. The girl asks if he really wants to know. He asks in surprise if it's true that this is her room. Waylon says that's true, but she would like to discuss something with him. He entered the room and sat down on the sofa, and then asks what she wanted to talk to him about. The girl asks him if he likes the royal apartments. He is surprised and asks why she asks. The lady says she thinks she can satisfy his desire. The guy says he has no idea what she's talking about, and then claims she's already Lyseltane, and asks how exactly she plans to satisfy his desires. Hearing this, the main character thought that she had said something wrong. At this time, Nellen was standing at the door and overheard their conversation, and the manager turns to him and says that this is not his room, and he is afraid that this is some kind of mistake, and offers to follow him because he will show his room. The guy says he doesn't remember his voice being that loud. Rudolvin asks for forgiveness because he was so impatient to greet him that he forgot all about manners, and therefore hopes that the master will understand. The manager thought that he did not want strangers to know that an engaged woman was talking alone with another man. He believed that if guests found out that someone was eavesdropping on guests, it could harm both the hotel's reputation and his own. Nellen says he must be a little tipsy from all that wonderful wine, and then asks if he could show him to his room. The man says he's glad to hear he enjoyed their wine. The guy says that they seem to be short-staffed. The manager claims that despite his interruption, the best service will be provided. Nellen says he expected nothing less from a mansion of grandeur, but suspects there could be security concerns. Hearing this, the man thought that he was hinting that he should keep his mouth shut, and then told him not to worry because the security in their mansion was in perfect order. The guy said that he hoped it was true. At this time, the main character thought that he really thinks that she is pestering him. And then she says that there was a small misunderstanding, and she meant their exquisite taste. Darrell agrees with her and says that he asked how she plans to satisfy his desires. Willin explains that starting today, the royal apartments belong to her. Hearing this, the guy screams and says that this can't be, and then asks if she's serious. At this time, the main character thought that first she would make him jealous with her right to own this number, and then she would use the royal apartments as a lever to get to know him better, and believed that the Archduke would also be pleased with this. The gentleman screams and says that he refuses to believe it, and then claims that if this room is given to just anyone, he wonders why it didn't go to the emperor. Waylon thought that she expected Darrell to be upset, but he frightens her with his scream, and she feels another coughing fit coming on. The girl suggests that he calm down. He asks if she came to get better, and then says that Archduke Lyseltane is a kind man, and he is sure that he wanted to help his sick daughter-in-law in any way possible. The main character thought that he would ask her to give him the number, but she didn't understand why he was avoiding the topic. Dolar says that this is essentially a waste of money, and then says that he wanted to ask to rent the apartment for a year in exchange for exclusive rights to process magic stones. The gentleman says that if he is trying to help his sick daughter-in-law, then he has no choice but to give up, and then asks if it is true. Hearing this, the girl was surprised, because she didn't even imagine that he would react like that. The Duke asks why she is surprised, and also wonders if the reaction is not what she expected from him. He says that the lady tried to put pressure on him, and then objects, and says that on his last name in order to get what she wanted, and asks if that is so. The guy asks if she really thought he would fall for her hook. At this time, the main character thought that she had allowed her arrogance to get the better of her because she knew that he was very smart, and yet she had been careless. Walian reflects on how everything had been going according to the plot of the novel, and her plans up until this point, but she doesn't understand what went wrong, and thinks that maybe it was because she met Darrell outside of the plot. The gentleman says that he does not know what the lady is thinking so deeply about, but he believes that even if he were a Delvian, he would not have put together all the pieces of this puzzle. The young lady realizes that she was careless, but believes that this will not change her goal. The girl asks if he really wants to refuse, and at that moment she thinks that no matter what, he will not be able to resist the royal apartments. At this time, the guy thought that he understood why she invited him in, and then asked what exactly she wanted. The gentleman says that if she is not honest with him, he will not give her an answer, and the lady thought that he is not a timid person and thinks that she needs to approach everything wisely. Wayland reports that she has received an invitation to the Duke's upcoming party. Dolar says that he knows that a cache of magic stones was discovered in the Lisselton territory, and the girl says that she plans to go to the evening with the Archduke. Hearing this, the guy asks in surprise whether she will go to the evening with the Archduke and wonders how his youngest son is doing. At this time, the main character thought that she still had a chance to change everything because he did not call Gellard an illegitimate child, as it was in the novel. Wayland says she's sure he knows how much the Archduke values merit, and the young master suggests they stop beating around the bush and speak plainly. The girl says that, as the Gellard's fiancée, she wants to contribute to the Lyselton family. He asks if she thinks she should score some points with the Archduke. The young lady realized that he was a quick learner. The royal apartments mean a lot to Darrell. His mother, who suffered from dungeon sickness, loved this place very much. However, in order to secure accommodation in the royal apartments, he needed the Emperor's help. But every time he came to him for help, the Emperor asked Dolar to support him by the hand, or hug him, and sometimes even kiss him on the cheek. The main character understands that she is irritated by all his outrageous requests, and he could not wish for more access to the number without the help of the Emperor. The gentleman agrees, and says that from today on, she is officially friends with Darrell Delvian. She asks in surprise if she will be his friend. The guy asks if she meant something else, and then says that he says that they are friends the safest option, and asks if she doesn't think the same. The young lady thought about what she had planned to agree on in advance, and their stories, but not friends. Darrell asks what she was going to tell the Archduke when he asks how she knows him. She's not quite sure what she should say, and he insists that friends are better than lovers. The guy says that he will be using the royal apartments quite often, and therefore thanks in advance for the help. She says that, of course, she expects him to help her in return. The gentleman shakes her hand and says that he almost forgot, and then asks how he can contact her, and wonders if it is through the stone. Wayland says she doesn't have it, and so she'll have to send letters. He says it's too long and then gives her a gift, and claims it's good that he fully charged it before leaving, and so offers to take it. The young lady thanked him and thought that he was really giving her something so valuable. A connection stone is a type of artifact that does not work without protected magical energy. There are not many people in the Empire who have access to it, so connection stones are extremely rare. The young gentleman asks how long she plans to stay there. She replies that a couple of days will be enough, and maybe a whole week. The lady says that this may be the last time she will be able to enjoy a long stay there. The guy says he'll be in touch and offers to check the stone if possible, and suggests calling him simply Doral, since they are now friends. And when the girl was left alone, she thought that this was a hard day. The maid said that she had heard that Sir Adelvian could be unpredictable, but she did not think that he could shake her hand so hard. The lady interrupts the girl and asks if everything really looked like that, and then says that she played with him because she believes that success was on her side from the very beginning. Wayland says it's because she knew the real reason why Sir, or rather Darrell, wanted to get the royal apartments. The main character thought that he was the first character she encountered outside of her plans, and understands that now she has a friend and she has no idea why, but it makes her happy. The lady remembers that she had friends in that life, but here he is, the first. The maid tells the mistress that she would like to discuss with her about the dungeon disease, and then says that she is sure that she suffers from it. After hearing this, the main character realized that her illness was just part of the storyline. Marin says that it is known that some of the dungeons spread poison, and that what was under the vineyard could have been one of them. And since all the servants and the master had been in the vineyard for years, it is possible that they had developed immunity. Wayland says that she is not because she is a visitor. The maid says that this is so, because she was perfectly fine before. But every time she met with the Gellard after his return from the vineyard, she began to have attacks. The main character thought that she was sick long before that, and Maureen says that's why she made a list of what they can do to relieve the symptoms. Suddenly, the manager knocks on the door. The lady thanks Maureen and says that she will definitely take a look at her record and then asks if she could open the door. Rudelvin tells the lady that she has received a letter from the Archduke. The letter stated that he had heard that the lady had left for a mansion of greatness and therefore hoped that it would be to her taste. The reason he writes to her so soon after her departure is that he thinks it will be difficult to attend Duke Adelvian's party together. The Duke writes that he is sorry, but he cannot give her a concrete explanation. After reading the letter, the main character thought that he cannot even say why. The girl reads that he knows that her decision may shock her, but he wants her to go to the Duke's party with Gellard. He also suggests that they have a good rest in the mansion, since they will be able to discuss this in more detail when she returns. Chester's trading company was well known among businessmen, but in recent months, it had greatly expanded the scope of its activities. When the company sought investors to invest in Western trade, Kellen and other businessmen in the empire were certain that the idea would fail. The sea route to the west was dangerous and unreliable, and Western goods were not very popular in their empire. But to everyone's surprise, Osvaldo's magical artifacts and luxury items became very popular in the West, which led to a huge fortune. And to top it all off, a large gold mine was discovered around the same time. As if by the snap of a finger, a new sea route was created. It was called the Chester Road, and the profits from the shipping fees alone were enormous. Kellen doesn't understand why he's sending him such a letter. The Archduke read that his daughter-in-law was a real temptress and a flirtatious person. The Lord thought that he was trying to say that something was going on between Wylan and Durrell. The Duke thought about how the Shadow Guard Midnight reported to him that nothing unusual had happened, and according to him, after meeting with Durrell, he and Wayland had a conversation in her room. Keller doesn't understand why he's bothered by such a thing, as he thinks he wouldn't normally even think twice about writing such a letter. However, she understands that Midnight's reports are always accurate, but she knows that he hid her illness from her. The gentleman thought that there were two explanations for why he could have done this. Either he really had no idea about her illness, or he betrayed him. The Archduke believes that the reason Wayland was able to survive in Orlando's house despite her illness is because she is a wise and sensible girl, and the fact that she endured it alone is proof of her wisdom. After the discovery of the dungeon, there were people who wore brooches and medallions with her image inside in order to attract wisdom to themselves. Kellen believes that she is not the type to do such stupid things, and he is sure that Vaylin had a very good reason for these actions, and so he can only hope that she will put an end to these rumors. The girl says that she sent her answer to the Archduke, and now she needs to contact the Gellard. She wonders if it is worth sending an express courier. The maid says that someone is on their way, and then asks how about Togo just waiting. She asks if they can then continue their conversation, since she never heard her out. Marin says she was just about to tell her that there are ways to ease her symptoms, and she wanted to prepare these notes as she does for her classes. The lady objects and says that everything is very well organized, and she read about the magic potion and says that it is the most effective medicine. The maid explains that the brew is made from plants that grow only in magical dungeons. The main character recalls that the only mention of the dungeon disease in the novel was that Duchess Adelvin suffered from it, but there were no details, because she was a minor character, and there was no mention of her death. Waylin understands that if she gets to the evening, she will be able to learn a little more about this disease and ask it directly from the Duchess. The young lady thanks the maid and says that it is really very useful for her. And then she says that she does not know whether she has the dungeon disease or not. But if so, no one could give her a better gift than these notes. The mistress says that she is truly grateful that Maureen took the time to put all this together. Hearing this, the maid says that she is simply glad to be of service to Milady. At this time, the main character thought that she had just thanked her, and she was already so happy, and that made her soul feel warmer. Wayland says that since she understood that Gellard and Chester already knew each other, she thought that they should have met in the city, but definitely not in the dungeon. The young lady realizes that it is her fault for not telling Gellard about her plans to attend the evening with the Archduke. However, she does not understand how Nellen found out about it. The girl believes that Chester should have owned a grocery store and not an entire company, and he himself went to Gellard and did not try to avoid him. The main character understands that if he just approaches him like that, it negates the whole point of the Gellard's obsession, and she doesn't understand why everything is so different from the plotline of the original novel. The young lady knows that in the original, Nellen was not supposed to have anything to do with the magical dungeon, and she does not understand why he went there. And then she wonders what will happen to her then. And does it mean that her future will also change? Marina asks the lady if she is okay. And at that time, the lady thought that maybe she has a chance to survive her fate. Walian replies that she is fine and just feels a little cold. At this time, the girl thought that despite everything that is happening, she needs to stick to her normal behavior because she is not ready to die yet. The main character thinks that she needs to focus on what is really important and then tells Marin that she wants to ask her for a favor. The mistress says that she wants the maid to check something discreetly and use any means necessary, and then says that she needs information about Nellen Chester. Waylin understands that after the magical dungeon came into her possession, the actions of other characters did not deviate too much from the original plot. Kellen's kindness and Oren's visit were relatively predictable. The girl thinks that Nellen's character is definitely different. One of the main plot lines in the original novel was the story of the obsessed protagonist and his love interest who was always trying to escape. Although Nellen initially gave in to the advances, once he realized the seriousness of the situation, he began to avoid the Gellard in every possible way. The young lady realizes that something has changed and she must find out what it is. The girl understands that her real future may be different from what she knows, and this makes her nervous. The manager knocks on the door and says that he brought what the gentleman asked for. When Rudolvin entered Nellen's room, he thought that he had no idea why he was so attracted to his body, and eventually realized that he was a man. The manager of the mansion explains that the sender is Archduke Lizeltane, and he checked it. And then he explains that there were 5 pages in total, and he delivered 4, and this is the remaining one. At this time, the boy thought that he wanted to play, and then he gets up and tears up the letter. The surprised man asks what he is doing, and then says if he thinks it is okay to get rid of the Archduke's letter like that. Nalan asks what else he needed to do, and then asks if he had thought about giving the page to her. The gentleman tells him not to be so stupid, because he believes that he should not underestimate the young lady. Nalan asks if he hasn't heard about the green-eyed girl. Then she says she'll do everything in her power to find out why she's missing a page. Rudolvin claims that this was confidential information, and the gentleman asks who gave him this confidential information again. The guy pulls out a sword and says that the manager better watch how he looks at him if he doesn't want to lose his head, and then suggests that he stop staring at him like he's that nasty guy. Nalan asks if this is the only letter she has received. The man replies that there is another one from Gellard. The gentleman says it's a good job, and then says he'll send him the mermaid quills and siren feathers by the end of the day. Rudolvin thanks the gentleman for choosing the mansion of greatness and suggests enjoying the evening. And when he closed the door behind him, he thought about how he would not notice the breach in the security system. The manager thought he wasn't sure what he said to stop staring at him like he was that nasty guy. And he thinks that if he plays his cards right, he might be able to use this to his advantage and free himself from Sir Chester's grip. The man realizes that the nasty guy definitely means what it means. Rudolvin believes that this could explain why there are no mirrors in his room, and suggests that there must be a way to dig up more information, because then he will stop blackmailing him. At this point, the guy thought that this manager was an idiot who actually thought he could outsmart him, and so he thought it was surprising that he noticed the lack of mirrors. Chester remembered that he had said this guy twice, and thought that it sounded the same, and he didn't understand when these lecherous men left him alone. Neelan thought that even though he couldn't look at himself, he still needed to buy a couple of mirrors. The young gentleman reads a letter which says that the young lady had planned to attend an evening with the Archduke, but he would not be able to accompany her, and so she hopes that he will be able to go with her, and then apologizes for such a short note. At this point, Gellard thought about how he himself had suggested that they not interfere in each other's personal lives, and so he believed that he had no reason to be upset that she had invited his father. However, the guy does not understand why. But he is still upset, but he thinks that it is all because of that guy. He recalls meeting Nellen Chester, who was the owner of a leading trading company. Gellard thought that he had not met him before, but it seemed that this man was quite hostile. The young gentleman says that he congratulates him on the safe return of the merchant ship, and then bows. Surprised, Chester asks if he knew about it. Then the guy asks what he means. Nellen says he heard of his engagement to a very sociable young lady. Then he reports that it didn't take her long to befriend another man upon her arrival at the mansion of state. Gellard asks in surprise what he is talking about. Nellen says that he probably didn't know, and then apologizes because he didn't mean to embarrass him. And the gentleman suggests finishing the conversation, since he has already started. The young man says that he is still in a relationship. Gellard asks who he is and what kind of nonsense he is talking about. Chester replies that he is surprised that there are things that the gentleman still does not know. Then he asks why they do not continue this conversation at the meeting of Duke Adelvian, since he believes that he has a bride, and then this time he must be there. Hearing this, the young gentleman does not understand why he speaks as if he already knows him, and the guy suggests waiting because he thinks that this time he will not be able to attend. Gellard asks why surprised. He explains that his fiancée will be attending the party with none other than Archduke Kellen. The young master thought that he was upset because he didn't learn this from Weilin. And then he wondered who Nellen Chester was. Marin informs the lady that Nellen Chester is the owner of a trading company that has reached its peak in recent months. The company's growth is largely based on international trade. Before Sir opened it, he ran a grocery store. Hearing this, the lady thought that he must have been a merchant, but she did not understand why his character had changed. The maid says there is no information about how exactly he opened this business. She asks in surprise if there is none at all. Marin reports that they say he became a completely different person after a headache attack, and he told one of his clients that it felt like someone hit him on the back of the head with a hammer. The maid says that the pain was so strong that he did not appear at the shop for several days in a row, and when a colleague decided to visit him, according to her stories, he was very confused. Weilin asks why and what he said. The guy asked her about their time and the current emperor, and also wondered if she was the person he remembered. Marin reports that there is one more thing, and he asked if Weilin Orlando is still alive. Hearing this, the main character was surprised and thought that this guy seemed to know the future, and remembered that she also had a headache because of memories of a past life. The girl thought that maybe Nellen was reborn, and if so, he knows that she should die before the plot begins. After all, that's why he was interested in her. The main character remembers that ever since Nellen fell in love with Etelina, he wanted to escape from Gellard, who stood in the way of his happiness. That's why that guy went into trade and got rich by changing his fate. However, he doesn't understand why he needs to look for Gellard, and he thinks that this time he was lucky that he was lenient, but he could have misunderstood everything and gotten upset. The young lady thought that he also wanted to make her quarrel with Gellard, and she assumes that Nellen still remembered his past life. Weilin suggests that after all the torment provided by Gellard, he would want to change his future. And since the gentleman is now engaged, Nellen could easily do so. The girl believes that instead of avoiding meetings, he was trying to wedge himself between them, and therefore thought that maybe she wanted to finally break him. However, if it weren't for her, Nellen could have mined the magic stones from Gellard's dungeon and ridiculed him for lying about his bride. Weilin remembers that she was the one who took away all his chances, and therefore believes that he must hate her for ruining his plans. The girl understands that they both knew how events could unfold and could not help each other, and in any case their goals were radically different. The lady suggests that if Nellen wanted to destroy Gellard, then Weilin dreamed of a quiet life, while one wanted to change the plot and the other waited for it to begin. The main character believes that even if a couple of little things have changed, the main events will inevitably happen, after all. At least that's what happened throughout the book. Weilin remembers that she heard that Nellen began to study martial arts, and he probably excelled in using all types of weapons from sword to bow, and she thinks that if things continue like this, he might get rid of her. The main character does not understand what to do now, because she believes that she was too hasty in her thoughts yesterday, and therefore knows that she should not think about important things alone early in the morning. The girl believes that it is not beneficial for Nellin to finish her off, because firstly, he is a force that has only just begun to form and join aristocratic circles. The lady understands that he can show kindness as long as his affairs are going well, but she does not understand what will happen if he shows hostility towards the nobility. Wylan reflects that then everything will change significantly, and in the end, there is nothing more cowardly than the aristocracy. The maid tells the mistress that it is time for her to get up, and the lady invites her to come in and says that she needed to think about something. Then she asks if she has the morning free. Marin says that she is free, but Sir Adelvian is visiting the Mansion of Greatness today, but maybe he won't come, but she thinks that she should dress up just in case. The maid says that most likely the manager sent the mermaid scales to the Adelvian estate, and now he is here to return it back. Hearing this, the lady was surprised and then asked why the manager did this. Marin tells Milady that she doesn't know for sure, but Sir Adelvian swore and even shouted that he had no right to accept a bribe, let alone do it. Hearing this, the main character does not understand why Nellan is doing all this and what kind of mermaid scales are these. And she asks the maid if she knows how long he will stay in the Mansion of Greatness. Marine replies that he is leaving after lunch, and the lady suggests that she organize a brunch with Durrell. Walking down the corridor, the maid thought that Lady Wylan was too interested in other men when she arrived here. First, she made friends with Sir Dorrell, and then asked her about Nellin Chester. Marin thought that she doesn't have affairs, but she should bring Gellard's portrait, because she thinks that this is not an excuse for his dandy appearance. But if she sees the portrait, she will remember that all men pale in comparison to the gentleman. Wayland thanks the gentleman for agreeing to meet her. He asks if she had a good reason, since he was suddenly surprised by the invitation. The girl asks how she could let her friend go without saying hello. He asks if that's why she took the pen and notebook. The main character says that he noticed, and that it is natural, and then says that she is curious about what happened in the morning. Doral asks if she loves him, and the lady wonders why he asks such a thing so suddenly. The young gentleman asks if there are any other reasons why she would do this. Then he says that it is great and everything will be fine. Waylon asks in surprise what this all means. He replies that she would be surprised if she knew how many fake couples come there. The father talks to such people, but he senses deception a mile away and thinks that such fake or badly relatable couples are trying to seduce his mother. Dorel says that let's make sure that everyone knows about her attitude towards that illegitimate child so much that everyone feels uncomfortable, because they think that this will be enough to convince the father. Valen says that she will take this into account and thanks for the good advice, and then says that there is still something left, and then asks if they are friends. He answers that they are friends. The girl asks him if he thinks he is being a little rude to his friend's fiancé as an illegitimate son. Hearing this, the gentleman asks if she dotes on him, and then says that, under other circumstances, she would not have asked Adelvian not to call anyone that. Hearing this, the main character thought that she had forgotten that she was talking to the Duke's son, and then she says that it is natural that love makes people do crazy things. Durrell says that he would also like to experience such a feeling, that love that makes you fight for the honor of your beloved, and it doesn't matter at all who he's talking about. The girl asks why they don't go out and meet new people. He asks what if he meets a dumb girl, and then claims that he would rather be single than love a dumb girl. The guy says that he thinks he will only recognize someone as smart as her. Wyleen says that she didn't hear him because he spoke too quietly. The guy replies that it's nothing important, and then suggests that they attack the food. At this time, the main character thought that she needed to tell Gellard about Doral's advice. The lady thought about the fact that Marin had been nowhere since lunch, and that she could not entrust this letter to Rudelvin, and thought that she would have to send the letter herself. When the lady went out into the corridor, she became interested in where the mailroom was, and at that time she did not even notice that Nellin was following hers. The butler informs the gentleman that a letter has arrived from Lady Vaillant. He says that this letter contains information received from Sir Adelvian. Gellard asks if he said that she met with Sir Adelvian. He replies that they had a friendly brunch. Hearing this, the gentleman does not understand when they managed to become so friendly, and then remembers that there was no talk of Sir Adelvian staying in the Mansion of Greatness. The guy thought that he knew that this gentleman was there from time to time. However, he thinks that if he showed up without a reservation, his father would have told about it, and he understands that she was waiting for an opportunity to improve relations between him and the Adelvian family. Gellert thought about Sir Adelvian coming to the Mansion of Greatness to meet Waylon. He thinks about how not only she eats with another man, but also wipes his nose. And so, he thought that she wants to make him jealous. The gentleman asks if she will be back soon. Indigo asks if he is talking about the lady. The guy says that she was planning to leave for a short time and remembers that she only said a couple of days, but suddenly stayed for a week. The gentleman thought that an engagement with Sir Adelvian would be more advantageous for Valine. However, the thought that she might be happy with someone else frightens him. Gellard thought that he needed Valen, and he thinks that he can't give her to someone else. At this time, the main character saw a guy near her door, and she wondered what he was doing there. Then she turns to him and says that it must be him. And when the guy saw the lady, he asked in surprise if she knew him. At this time, the main character does not understand why Nellen pretends to see her for the first time, and assumes that he asked others whether she is alive or not. Willen thought that he was a minor character, and he knew her name, but not what she looked like, and therefore she thought that he certainly wouldn't recognize her. The girl asks how she can't recognize him, and then says that he is the owner of the famous Chester Trading Company, and she congratulates him on the successful opening of a large trade route. At this time, the main character thought that if these guesses are true, then Nellen remembers his past life, and he may try to harm her when he realizes that she is deviating from the original storylines. Considering that he knows so much about the events leading up to the affair, he may not be from a past life at all, but the lady believes that he may still pose a threat. Waylon says that she heard that he was staying at the Grand Mansion, but she didn't realize that they were living on the same floor, and at that time, she thought about him just leaving. The guy asks if she knew he was staying at this place, and then says it's weird because he never told anyone about it. The lady says she heard it from her maid because she noticed him recently, and then says he's practically a celebrity here. Nellen says that it is interesting, and then it is reported that no matter how beautiful it is here, he believes that there are many curious eyes here. And the girl says that, in any case, she hopes that he really likes it here. Suddenly, the guy grabs the girl by the hand and says that since they met, they might as well introduce themselves. He claims that the lady knows who he is, but he doesn't know who she is, and then asks if that's fair. The main character says that, unlike him, she is not so famous, and therefore it will be awkward if she introduces herself officially. And at that time, she thought that he will not let her go until he gives his name. But suddenly, a maid comes up to them and tells Milady that she searched for her, and then takes his hand from the girl. She says that the Count called and asked to talk to her, and she scared her by disappearing like that. At this time, the mistress does not understand that she usually does not chat so much with Marin. The maid claims that it is urgent, and they must immediately return to Milady's room. Whelan realized that Marine was trying to help her get out of this situation, and then she turns to the gentleman and apologizes, explaining that she has to take a call from her father. Nellen asks if they can continue their conversation next time, and he thinks that there was no need for her to make that up, and thinks that perhaps he was too harsh in his joke. Chester noticed a listening device in the royal apartments, and he could not believe that Rudelwin was trying to install it. But he understands that he will not be able to escape from his hands with such a trick. The guy thought that it was good that he had a chance to see him sneaking towards the royal apartments when Wylin left the room. However, he thinks that otherwise everything could have become more complicated. Nellen believes that, thanks to the manager, he managed to stumble upon something very interesting. The guy thinks that this girl is his prey, but he needs him too. At this time, the maid apologizes and says that the mistress must be shocked by her behavior, and then says that she did not know what else to do. Whelan says that everything is fine, and she helped her a lot. Marine says that she is very sorry because she only went away for a short while to buy some things, and she did not think that something like this would happen. Milady claims that everything is fine, and then asks what she bought. The maid says that she thought it might help her, and then says that she has prepared a portrait of the Gellard. She says that if she looks at his face every day, the mistress will not be distracted by other men. The next day, the main character says that she can't believe that it's time to go back. Marine says that she's right, because time really did fly by. Whelan thought that she had been so busy that she hadn't been able to interact with the people on the guest list. However, she thought that she should probably be grateful that she had been able to befriend Darrell. Gellard meets the girl and says that he came to pick her up. At this time, the main character thought that she had been staring at this portrait for so long that she was already imagining it. But when the guy turned to her again, the lady asked him in surprise what he was doing there. He replied that he had come to pick up his rested daughter-in-law. And at that moment, he thought that he couldn't get the thought of her with another man out of his head, but he thought that he couldn't tell her about it. Gellard wondered if she really thought he would let another man take her away. When the guy saw his portrait, he asks what it is. She explains that it is his portrait, and at that moment, he cannot believe that she bought his portrait, because he understands that the whole city will talk about how she chose it, and therefore feels stupid for doubting her even for a moment. Waylon says that if he doesn't mind, she would like to keep it, and the guy says that then he also wants to have her portrait. The lady says that sounds great. The priest says her immune system is weakened, and there is some damage to the tissues of the respiratory tract, but otherwise, she is healthy. The gentleman asks what the doctor said. The butler says that the test results will be received next week. At this time, the gentleman thought that if the source of the disease cannot be found, even with the use of magic and sacred powers, then it is unlikely that Waylon is suffering from the disease of the dungeons. Gellard thought he'd wait for an official diagnosis to tell her about the herbs. The young gentleman asks the girl if she has chosen what to wear to the Duke of Adelvian's evening. He informs her that the dress code is pink and translucent, and then says that if she doesn't mind, they could wear matching outfits. At this time, the young lady thought that she was not sure that she could wear something of this color. And at this time, the guy thought that it was too early for him to ask about couple outfits, but he thinks that he just wants to show Darrell that he is Waylion's fiancé. Gellard seemed to be less than thrilled with the idea, and then asked why they didn't have dinner together that evening, as she thought they should discuss his new class schedule. Waylon apologizes and then asks how she could forget such an important thing. The young master tells her not to worry, as he believes that was the whole point of her vacation. The guy kisses the lady's hand and says that he will then come for her before dinner. She agrees and says that they will see each other later. At this time, Adelina's parents ask when she is going to remember her great-grandfather's name. She assures that she knows his name and just got it mixed up, and then claims that she needs to know so many names. Señorita tells Milord not to be so harsh, and then claims that her daughter is not usually like this, and she doesn't know what came over her. Oren says it's stupid, because last week she couldn't even tell him how old her grandfather was when he died. The woman claims his presence is so great that she gets nervous, and she herself is in awe of his greatness. The gentleman says that it took Waylon less than an hour to remember everything. Hearing this, the lady screams and says that if he needs Waylon so much, he should have returned her home. The woman asks why he is taking it out on her, even though he failed to get her back. The Marquis asks how she dares. Adelina reminds her father that he said he would love her even if she did poorly in school, and then asks why he is now reprimanding her. And then father hurts his hand. Oren tells the lady to give her something to stop the bleeding quickly, and he screams and says that his daughter is a spoiled child. The Marquis hugs the woman and says that this is what he needed, because she is his only medicine. And when the woman calmed the gentleman down, she ran after Itilina. The girl asks why everyone is against her, and she also wonders why they stopped loving her, just because she is she. The girl remembers that her mother promised that this would not change even if she became the heir. Adelina remembers that she said that she could just leave all her studies to Waylon, and all she had to do was be beautiful. However, she thinks that there is nothing good about being an heiress. The girl believes that all this talk about her being able to date and make friends once she becomes an heiress was a lie, and she believes that if she had known everything in advance, she would not have allowed Waylon to get married. Although Etelina became an heiress, she was still an illegitimate child, so she was almost never invited to aristocratic parties. And on those rare occasions when she did pass through them, her lack of communication skills guaranteed that she would return home without saying a word the entire evening. Not only that, but her outfits were often provocative and inappropriate for such gatherings, making her the subject of ridicule. The girl realizes that everything was relatively fine, but she was constantly compared to Waylon's. Mom asks Etelina if she hears her, and then asks why she continues to irritate the Count and wonders how many times she has to tell her to put up with it. The woman asks if she thinks she wants to spend the rest of her life with this old geezer, trying to make him happy, and then claims that if it weren't for him, they'd be living on the street, and also asks if she doesn't feel sorry for her mother for dancing to his tune. Mom explains that she had a hard life, but her daughter grew up with everything she could ever dream of. Then she asks if there is anything to complain about. Edelina tells her not to scream like that, and then asks what if her father hears Mom says that even now she only cares about what this man will think, and claims that she never thinks about her. The woman says that the way she looks at her is exactly the same as those green eyes that looked down on her because she was an unknown actress, and they spoke for themselves. She was a wife, and she was a mistress. Mom asks how it all came to this, and then says that before they were a big, happy family, where everyone played a certain role. Edelina realizes that she was the one who received all the love, and Waylon was the one who received all the anger, and she wonders if all this is happening because she left. Edelina wants Waylon to come back and take all the anger on herself so that she can be loved again. At this time, the maid gives Milady a blanket and asks if she is cold. Waylon thanks her and says that it is not just goosebumps that ran down her skin. However, she does not understand why she has a bad feeling, but she thinks that she needs to concentrate because the Duke's reception is tomorrow. When the main character put on a new dress, she thought that it fit perfectly. She remembered that she used to wear Etelina's clothes. Because of this, she had to spend the whole morning choosing an outfit that would suit her figure, and the maids often made fun of her. Waylon didn't think that a dress could be both beautiful and comfortable. The maid thought that her chestnut hair and pink dress looked delightful, and that Milady had a keen eye. The main character thought that she was glad that she met the seamstress, and remembered that her sister often visited this store. A couple of days ago in the seamstress's shop, the dressmaker says that she is grateful to the lady for what, and that she still counts on her competence. Waylon says that she has been making clothes all her life, and then asks who else she would go to for advice. The woman asks if she wants a pink outfit, and suggests using plum as the main light. The main character says that plum is of course good, and then asks if it hasn't become outdated 20 years ago. The lady replies that history repeats itself, and fashion is no exception. The seamstress claims that the polonaise is back in trend, and therefore it will not seem outdated, but rather stylish. Waylon thought that it sounded promising, and maybe everything looked better than she thought. The seamstress asks, how about adding light pink lace and ruffles to the petticoat, because she thinks it will make the look even more stylish. She says if they make the sleeves collar and braid light pink, the dress will be very pretty. The woman says that she may think that, because of her brown hair and green eyes, she won't look good in pink. But when she sees herself in the payment, she definitely won't be disappointed, and she will try her best to make this dress highlight her best features. The maid asks Milady if she would like to wear a hat, because there is a blizzard outside. The lady replies that she would prefer to go without it, so as not to ruin her hair. Maureen reminds her that Mr. Gellard personally chose it. The maid asks to at least allow her to attach the brooch, and then says that the test results will be available today, and therefore suggests that Milady not worry since she will hide them until her return. The young gentleman asks the lady if she is ready yet, and when he sees her, he says that she looks great, and it's as if the dress code was made especially for her. Waylon, hearing this, says that it is wonderful because he believes that this is exactly the kind of compliments he should give his partner on the first date. Gellard thanks the lady because he considers her a great teacher, and at that time, he thought that she still did not wear the hat he gave her, but she did make a brooch, and he is happy only because she chose one of her gifts. The young master orders the carriage to stop, and then turns to Waylon and asks if she will wait a minute. She asks where he ran off to. Gellard says that this is their first time going out together and asks if she will accept these flowers. He explains that it took some time to find a shop, but fortunately, they found a flower shop that was open in the winter. At that time, the girl could not even think that she would ever accept flowers, and even from Gellard. At this time, the guy looked at the girl and thought that she reminded him of a meadow, and he thinks that maybe that's why red roses suit him much better. But the way she looks at roses makes him feel warm inside, and he hopes that he will see many such smiles for a long time. Dorel, when he saw them together, he said that he was glad to see Lady Wheeline. She asked how he was doing, and the gentleman asked what kind of flowers. The lady explains that the Gellard gave them to her on the way here. Hearing this, the gentleman thought that the flowers were bought, and only a fool would go to a woman who has flowers from her fiancé. Darrell says that her fiancé really doesn't understand anything. Then she says that she can't believe that he chose red roses for a girl who wore a plum dress because they attract too much attention. At this time, the main character does not understand what came over him, and then says that this is enough. Hearing this, the Duke thought that several days had passed since their meeting, but her behavior had changed so much, and he does not understand why Wylin avoids him so much. Dolar thought that it was he who bought her these terrible flowers, and he does not understand why she is so angry with him, because she thinks that daffodils or lilies would suit her better. The Duke thought that if only he were her suitor, and then turns to the lady and asks her for a few words. Gellard asks if he wants to talk to his fiancée alone. Doral says yes, and then asks if he has a problem. The guy apologizes, and then says that he needs to discuss a very important matter with Wylin Darrell, asks if he is not here to meet his father, and then says that he has not arrived yet, and they have plenty of time. Gellard says that he will still stay with them because he believes that there is no reason to leave them alone. At this time, the main character thought that Gellard had been acting strange lately. Absolutely everything, starting with the way he stared at her in the morning and ending with the flowers he bought for no reason. And now he insists that she not be alone with Darrell. The Duke thought that judging by the way Gellard was looking at her, it couldn't be that he considered her an ordinary friend, and therefore believed that, under no circumstances, should they be left alone. At this time, the guy with blonde hair does not understand what kind of person just approaches a friend when her fiancé is standing next to hers. Gellard doesn't understand what's wrong with him, because he knew from the beginning that she was engaged, and he doesn't know why it suddenly bothers him. He feels like he finally has the lover he's been desperately waiting for. Suddenly, the Duke approached them with his wife. At this time, the main character thought that it was a relief, because with the Duke's arrival, Darrell would probably join him. The Duke says he didn't know they knew his son. His wife says he disturbed the young couple, and the gentleman asks what it means because he thinks they will all be important allies soon. The guy says he wants to introduce himself properly, and then says his name is Gellard Lisseltane, and says may his family be blessed with joy forever. And his girlfriend asks how the Duke and Duchess of Adelvian are doing, and says her name is Vaylin Lisseltane. The Duke says that they seem to be the same age as his son, but look like they are from another planet. His wife agrees with him, and then says that they have nice manners, and therefore does not think that she was like that at their age. The gentleman turns to his wife and objects, and then says that it is not true, because ever since he met her, she has always been charming, and he was so flattered by her greeting that he was speechless. The Duke thought that the rumors that she was giving him lessons in nobility were true, and he doubted whether they could be useful, but he was nevertheless impressed. The Duchess thought that this was connected with another Orlando, and when she thinks about her friend Celestine, she does not understand whether she would be happy about this, and she wonders whether she would be happy. Celestine and Fiorin were longtime pen pals. Fiorin was one of the first to disapprove of Celestine's decision to become the mistress of Archduke Lisseltane, but his friend insisted that she truly loved him and had never met anyone who understood her as well as he did and shared the same values. Celestine says he doesn't care that she hates wearing heavy makeup and wearing dangling wigs. Even if everyone else calls her a weirdo and points fingers, the Archduke will love her for who she is. The girl says that he even thanked her for helping him be honest with himself, and then asks Fiorin if she will support her. And then she says that when she settles in Asfaldian, they will be able to see each other a little more often. A little later, Celestine became pregnant and gave birth to a child who looked like her, a blonde boy with matching eyes. Her adorable baby became a muse for many artists. However, Fiorin could no longer exchange letters with Celestine, let alone meet her and her child.